Hey everybody, welcome back to the video. I'm excited to talk about um okay. So today we're talking about annoying game mechanics. There are many, they are vast, and they are constantly overused, and today we're going to talk about a bunch of those. So if you have one of your own that you find very annoying, let me know down below. I'd love to talk to you about it. Let's go ahead and get started with the first one. Limited inventory space can add tension by making players choose what items to keep, but it can also feel like a constant interruption. When done poorly, it turns into micromanagement that takes away from the fun. For example, in Skyrim, inventory space becomes a chore. The game's sprawling world is filled with loot, but your character's carrying capacity is limited. You constantly find yourself over-encumbered, slowing your movement to a crawl, forcing you to drop items or backtrack to sell or store loot. This mechanic interrupts exploration and immersion. On the other hand, Resident Evil 4 uses limited inventory space brilliantly. The game's attaché case system is a mini-puzzle, where you have to carefully arrange your weapons, ammo, and healing items. It forces players to prioritize creating tension without feeling like a nuance. It complements the survival horror genre, enhancing the feeling of scarcity and making every decision feel important. I picked Skyrim and Resident Evil 4 because I feel like they're both kind of on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to how inventory management can be done in video games. Skyrim, for example, gives you way too much, but also limits what you're allowed to carry. If you're going to put me in a big, vast, open world, and I'm some dragon-killing machine, like, superhero guy, and I'm limited on inventory space, and I can't carry enough, we're fighting dragons. Defeat the realism. Just let me pick up as much as I want, because now I'm having to determine, do I want to keep these flowers for alchemy, or do I want to keep these weapons that I'm going to sell for gold later, or what, it just gets so intense and just too much when it comes to inventory management. Whereas with Resident Evil, it is a survival horror game. It's meant to be scarce resources and limited space. You're only carrying what essentially is a briefcase with you. I don't know where he puts that. Anyways, the inventory system in Resident Evil 4 makes sense because it's supposed to be realistic. It's not giving you dragon fighting, dragon shouting magic spells. It's a guy shooting a gun at zombies, which, for realism, for what it's worth. But it makes sense for inventory management to be a thing in this game compared to Skyrim, where I feel like I should just be able to carry whatever I want. QuickTime events can be exciting when used sparingly to emphasize key moments, but they often fail when they're overused or disrupt the flow of gameplay. In The Walking Dead Season 1, QTEs are well executed. They're used in moments of high tension, such as fending off zombies, without overstaying their welcome. The timing of these QTEs allows the story to remain engaging while giving the player a sense of urgency during dangerous encounters. They enhance the drama and don't feel like mindless button mashing. However, God of War Ascension is an example of QTEs used poorly. Throughout the game, QTEs are frequent, repetitive, and often appear during cutscenes, breaking the immersion. Instead of focusing on combat or narrative, you're constantly distracted by on-screen button prompts that feel tacked on and unnecessary. The use of QTEs goes way back for me. I can remember early on Dragon's Lair is one the game's basically a huge QTE. You're just pushing buttons when prompted to throughout the entire game. But for me and my experience with QTEs, the one I remember the most is, of course, Shenmue. Shenmue used QTEs to kind of allow you to feel like the gameplay and the cutscenes were one. So sometimes you're watching a cutscene, but being able to press a button to do that kick or watch out for that thing made it feel a little more immersive. But I think that we've lost our way with QTEs, and now they're just kind of a thing that are thrown in to make sure that you continue feeling like you're playing. For me, recently, Final Fantasy 16 was that way, where I'm watching this huge, epic cutscene, and these things are battling, and it looks so cool, and then all of a sudden I have to just start mashing X just because the cutscene kind of gives you the idea that you need to. Two giant things are clashing. I need to be mashing X to push back. But at the end of the day, I'd rather just watch the cutscene if you're going to do that. I'm immersed enough. I enjoy theatric cutscenes, especially being a Final Fantasy fanboy. I enjoy theatric cutscenes, so I can just sit there and watch them. I don't feel like I need to hit a button to stay immersed. If anything, hitting buttons during times like that ruin the immersion for me.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 1 of Germacraft.
Crafting and base building systems can add depth and personalization to games, but when implemented poorly, they feel like tedious chores rather than enjoyable mechanics. No Man's Sky, for example, originally suffered from this. At launch, its crafting system felt like a repetitive grind. Players spent more time gathering resources for survival and basic ship repairs than exploring the vast universe the game promised. The constant need to craft fuel and resources hampered the freedom and excitement of exploration. In contrast, Subnautica integrates crafting beautifully. The game's focus on survival in an alien ocean makes the crafting system feel essential and rewarding. You gradually build more complex tools and bases, but the pacing ensures that resource gathering and crafting are balanced with exploration and progression. Crafting enhances the core gameplay rather than detracting from it. Alright, this one is one of my biggest dislikes when it comes to game mechanics. I strongly dislike that every game has to have crafting in it in some way. Crafting, base building, whatever it may be. Another example of a game that did that is Fallout 4, where crafting and base building kind of took over what is normally like a story-driven exploration game, because you always had to go back and get resources for your base, and that guy's always bothering you, and it kind of ruined the pace. So I feel like you can do it well. I think it's just one of those mechanics nowadays that's just shoehorned into every game, even if it's so small as like crafting items that you need. I mean, does every game need to have food crafting, item crafting, base building? I just don't feel, I'm getting frustrated. I've cut out a bunch of stuff. I just don't enjoy this mechanic at all, and I think it needs to go away. Just in general, I think, how do I say this? Fuck you, Minecraft.
And there she goes.
Item durability is often used to prevent players from relying on a single powerful item, but when done poorly, it becomes a constant annoyance. In The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the durability system is one of the most polarizing aspects of the game. Weapons break after just a few uses, forcing you to constantly find replacements. This mechanic interrupts combat and exploration, making players hesitant to use strong weapons for fear they're shattered too quickly. On the other hand, Dark Souls uses durability in a way that adds to the game's tension without overwhelming the player. Weapons degrade gradually and can be repaired at bonfires or with special items, but they don't break so quickly that it becomes a constant distraction. The system adds an extra layer of strategy to combat and exploration, but doesn't punish players unfairly. Breath of the Wild is, yes, it's, I would say, an almost perfect game, if not for the durability. The amount of weapons you go through just cracking stuff in like a couple of hits is just so frustrating. And there's other games that do it too. Go back to Bethesda games like Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout, whatever it may be, and them all having durability and them all just seeming to run out in random ways. The amount of times in Oblivion that I've been playing on stream that I pick up a weapon and I use it and it just seems to just degrade so quickly, and next thing I know I've got my fists out because my weapon's broken, and it's just so frustrating. It's not as frustrating as the crafting thing, but it's pretty close to it. I understand realism, but again, if I'm playing The Legend of Zelda or I'm playing Skyrim or Oblivion, I don't want the realism in that way. Like I don't want that level of realism. Just let me hit stuff with a sword and not worry about it breaking. I mean, even the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild has charges. It's annoying and obnoxious, and I hate it. And whatever, let's move on to the next one.
I can only do it from my lab, so you're gonna have to escort me there. An escort mission? And you have a health bar?
Escort missions are universally disliked because they often involve poor AI or overly vulnerable characters. However, when done right, they can create meaningful emotional stakes. GoldenEye 007 has an infamous example of bad escort mission. In this mission, Project Natalia, the AI is so poor that Natalia constantly runs into danger or gets stuck in awkward positions, making it more frustrating than challenging. The mission turns into an exercise in babysitting, with players feeling like they're being punished for the AI's shortcomings. In contrast, The Last of Us handles escort mechanics exceptionally well. Ellie, your companion for much of the game, is competent in combat, often helping by providing supplies or attacking enemies. Her presence feels natural and doesn't hinder the player. The relationship between Joel and Ellie adds emotional weight to the gameplay, and the escort mechanic is seamlessly integrated into the narrative. Boy, do I remember that Natalia AI escort mission. That was frustrating as a kid, because she'd get in the way, she'd be locked in corners, she'd be like doing this in the corner, or like she'd be just running into guys that were shooting at her, and it was so frustrating. And I understand it was the mid-90s. They had not really figured it out yet. I mean, technically you could probably say they haven't figured it out yet either, but games nowadays do a lot better, and either they make the escort mission shorter, or they make them more interesting and necessary feeling, like Last of Us or God of War, the new ones. I will say there are some that just kind of feel weird and tacked on, but I think nowadays we're kind of getting more of a hold of the escort missions. They're not as bad. The only thing I will say is if I have to escort someone, we move at the same speed or they move faster. That's all I got to say.
Much later, it fell into the hands of Aziz al-Hazrib, the genius of the occult, and he realized that the heart contained the secret of eternal life.
Exposition is critical for world building, but when done poorly, it can overwhelm the player with too much information all at once, disrupting the narrative flow. Final Fantasy XIII is a prime example of a game that relies heavily on exposition dumps. Much of the game's lore and backstory is buried in long text entries, with little of it conveyed naturally through gameplay or dialogue. Players are expected to pause and read through a glossary of terms to fully understand the story, which disrupts immersion and pacing. On the flip side, Hollow Knight excels at environmental storytelling, where exposition is woven organically into the game world. Instead of dumping lore onto the player through long dialogues or text, the game encourages exploration to uncover its secrets. The history and lore of Hollow Nest are subtly revealed through character interactions, item descriptions, and environmental clues, creating a rich, immersive narrative that never feels forced. I get it. Games today are just so vast and expansive, and the stories are so huge that it's hard to tell the story in a way that kind of is natural. Some games do it very well, some don't. I mean, you just have to look at AAA games these days that are full of audio logs or textbooks you have to read to get through the entire story, where it used to be you could just tell the story in the game naturally. I use the example of Hollow Knight. Sometimes you don't need to talk as much as show. Sometimes, a lot of times, showing is better than telling. Anyways, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. I love you. I hope you're enjoying the new content that I'm making. It's been a lot of fun. This is more like my old green screen videos, just a little more in depth. So I hope you enjoyed. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye.
Here's a list of video games that I have given a 10 out of 10. Now, just to preface, there's no game that's perfect.
You need games to play with your friends? Well, here's my top 25 of them ranked all the way down to my personal favorite.
When it comes to the discussion of gaming, I feel like all we ever really do is ask, like, what's the best game? What's the top 10? You know, every social media account on TikTok or Instagram or wherever is just like, can you name the top 10 games from 2012 or the top 10 soundtracks of all time? And it's just kind of like repetitive, and I feel like people are not asking the right questions or legitimate questions or questions that really make you think past what's the best of the best. So today, what I want to do is I found this subreddit through a Discord member, channel member, that dev guy called True Gaming, and it seems to truly ask some questions that are a little more important than what's the best or what's the top 10. So today we're going to look at some of those, and I'm going to give you my opinion as just a regular old guy. I have no stake in the game, really. I don't, I'm not a huge streamer who's paid to say things. I'm not in the business in any way. So I feel like I can answer these questions unbiasedly and just from my straight opinion, and maybe see what you think as well. So I found a couple of questions, and this first one that comes up is, was the change to $70 games worth it? Full disclaimer, I'm pretty squarely against the $70 USD price point for a long list of reasons, chief among them being that these AAA studios are all profitable and gaming is not a charity. But I'm not making this post to argue my points. I'm actually more curious about the thoughts of those who a couple years ago were saying that $70 games were necessary and that we as gamers would benefit due to lack of microtransactions, etc. I was wondering if now that we are more than halfway through this generation, you still feel that way. And then there's a couple of other questions below that. So, is it necessary? Maybe, maybe not. $10 is not, if it is not a lot. I feel like if it was like games went from 60 to 80 or 90, that might be a bit of a jump. And these questions down here kind of get into that, in the fact, did $70 get us better games? That's just kind of subjective. I feel like not really. More times than not, I'm disappointed with the games that I play. For example, I can think of a few new-gen games. I don't play a lot of new-gen games, but the ones that I do are few and far between when I'm willing to pay $70 for them, usually for something that I'm like, I don't want to wait for it to drop in price. And if it's a Nintendo game, I just deal with it because they'll never drop their prices. But did it get us better games? I'd say no. Examples I can think of are Resident Evil 8 and Final Fantasy 16. Just to think of a few, Resident Evil 8. I paid $70 for it because I wanted to play it the day of when it came out. And to say that it felt like I spent too much when the game only lasted, I think, 12 hours. It took 10 to 12 hours to beat the game. And if I'm going to pay $70 of my hard-earned money, I want more than 10 to 12 hours. I think that's a big problem, is that some of these AAA studios push out these games and they're not really worth the investment. Another one I can think of is Destiny, where I know that there's an online mechanic and that's the big sell of it at this point. But I remember buying the first Destiny and being so pissed when it, again, took me like 10 hours to beat the campaign, only to learn it's more of an online game than getting on the online and realizing it's just a repetitive slog and grind. No offense to Destiny lovers out there. If you like the game, that's fine. But for me, it didn't feel like it was worth the price point. Do you feel like the amount of microtransactions, battle passes, etc. has been reduced? No, I think it's only gotten worse, way worse. I think the good news is that for the most part, microtransactions and stuff are limited to free-to-play games. That's where you see them the most. In my experience, Hearthstone, some of the gacha games that I play on my phone and stuff, they are free to play. You never have to give them any money, but they are very good about trying to squeeze it out of you in the sense it's like, okay, if you want to be really good or you want to get all the new cool stuff, you have to have money. You can't get away with paying for it for free. Now, there are some that are egregious in the sense that they cost a full price and they still have the microtransaction battle passes. Things like Call of Duty come to mind, where it's just like you have to pay the full price for the game. There's almost no campaign. I know there's one in these games, but they're not the big focus. The big focus is online play with these Call of Duty games. And their microtransactions and battle passes and all that are just egregious. I think Grand Theft Auto is the same way. I imagine with GTA 6, you'll pay full price for the game, and there will be online stores and all that stuff. Whatever the shark cards or whatever they sold in GTA 5, those will be there as well. So I think the microtransactions, battle passes, all that stuff are just out of hand. And I made a video last year talking about microtransactions. You can check that out. Things have changed quite a bit since I did that video because they're just the way battle passes and stuff have been done. Some of the games that I talk about have shifted the way they do it, from going from like microtransactions and like loot boxes to battle passes. It's just an ever-evolving thing. I don't think it's going away, and I feel like it will continue to be in certain full-price games. But for the most part, like I said, I think it's more attached to free-to-play games because that's how they make their money if the game is free-to-play. Hearthstone, for example, I gave them money way back in the day when the game first started. Nowadays, I do not spend any money on Hearthstone. I'm completely free-to-play, and it works that way. But to say that they are not sly about their microtransactions, like their new $60 skin, you're paying essentially the price of a full game for a skin, which I think is ridiculous. And they backed it up with like, well, in order to keep making stuff like this, we need your $60 for the skin. I can't imagine that anybody will really buy it outside of those people that already spend a ton of money on it. But it's just the amount's getting out of hand. Is the experience of playing Gen 9 games worth the extra $10? I don't really know how you delineate that. Like, I feel like paying $60 for Final Fantasy 16 would have felt just as good, for what it's worth, as it was paying $70 for it. And then it says AAA games specifically, true, because indies are not at this price point. I think that's the biggest part of this, is if you don't think that $70 games are worth it, there's two things you can do. The one that involves you still playing the AAA game is just to wait until it goes on sale, which nowadays happens a lot sooner than it used to, especially with systems like Steam and stuff always having sales. It's pretty easy to get games for cheaper than the full price. And then the other saying that indies are not at this price point, I would agree that you could just play indie games. There's so many great indie games that are so cheap, like just a couple of bucks. Stardew Valley, Vampire Survivors, like there's a list of these that just are so cheap for being indie games that you just go, well, I don't have to pay $70 for this, and I'm still getting the amount of time, if not way more than paying full price for a AAA studio game. Did AAA studios earn that extra money? I don't know. That's a good question. Again, I'm not speaking from like a place of deep knowledge or like experience from talking to others about it, more so my understanding of it. And do they earn that extra money? Probably in some capacity, maybe not completely. But you do have to think that gaming as a whole, especially for AAA studios, has become a much bigger venture than it used to be. You think about the old Mario Brothers or Sonic or something, where it was just a small team of people working on this, to where nowadays with these AAA games, you have hundreds of people working on them, and those people have to get paid, and maybe that extra $10 goes into that. I don't know. I'm sure there are studios that are charging $70 even though they don't need to, because it's the industry standard now in the AAA space. So, could be bad, could be good, but, for me, at the end of the day, does an extra $10 really matter? Probably not. I looked up, you can see the ad behind me is an old N64 ad from back in the day in 96. And I looked up $199, which is what the N64 costs, so about $200 in 1996, is worth $398.94 today. So you got to think that in the grand scheme of things, and you can complain, you can argue inflation, all that stuff with me. It's just at the end of the day, I'm just reading what I've got here. Is that a $200 console then is now worth twice as much. So, it's about the same. I know consoles are a little more expensive. I definitely paid more than $400 for my PS5 back in the day. I did get it a couple of months after it came out. I got extremely lucky, and I think I paid for that. Nowadays, though, I think you can get them for a little over $400, if not around $400. So it's seemingly that the gaming landscape has not changed too much. So let's see, there's the Mario game as well, which is $60 or $60. Yep, so let's do $60 from 1996 to 2024. That's $120.28. So if we're doing the math that way, we're kind of making out pretty good that over the last 10 years or so, $70 is not that bad. A $10 increase is not nearly as bad as, it could be. Games could, if we're going by the math of inflation this way, you could be paying $120. There's even someone in the comment section that's like, I'm from a foreign country, and can be closer to $80, $90 because I don't live where the games are developed or made or whatever it is. So I get it, games are bigger and more expensive to develop, but I don't get more out of it than before. In Norway, new games often cost the equivalent of 80 to 90 USD now, and that's the standard editions. Almost never buy games at launch anymore. I'll wait 6 months to a year and pick it up at a discount. Yep, that's the way to do it. Unfortunately, sometimes you just have to wait. And I won't even get to, mentioned standard editions. I won't even get into like the Founders Edition or the Members Edition or the Ultimate Edition that comes with a statue and a booklet and all these things, where a game goes from $70 to $140. So if you think 70 is bad, it could be even more if you're that kind of person. And no offense to people that will pay $140 for all that extra stuff. That's just my opinion. All right, that's enough talking. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the newer content. I'm trying not to just play video games. Instead, talking about questions like this. I hope you enjoyed the Binding of Isaac video that came out Saturday. I had a lot of fun with that one. There's more coming down the pipeline, stuff like this, interviews with friends or viewers. So if you want to check that out, you can go to the Discord where I talk about all these ideas and kind of give behind the scenes looks at what I'm working on. That's very exciting, so come join the Discord. And as always, thank you to the members of this channel. I appreciate you very much for your patronage. It's very cool. If you'd like to do that, $2 a month, really cheap to become a member and get a lot of bonus perks. But anyways, that's enough talking about these. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did, and I'll talk to you soon, okay? Thank you for watching. I love you. Subscribe. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. I'm back. It has been a nice vacation, and I'm excited to get back to this because I think that... Hello? God?
Fake, you have a plague on your channel you must remove.
I do, and what's that?
Your daily schedule. You must remove the plague that is killing you.
Actually, I already did that. I stopped uploading daily a while back.
Oh, cool. Well then, can you talk about Binding of Isaac?
Sure thing. Sure, yeah.
Did you know I'm in this game?
I did know that you were in the game, yes. Very cool. Let's talk about Binding of Isaac.
Isaac and his mother lived alone in a small house on a hill. Isaac kept to himself, drawing pictures and playing with his toys as his mom watched Christian broadcasts on the television. Life was simple.
Let's start with the story of Binding of Isaac, which is equal parts disturbing and fascinating. Its roots lie in the biblical story of the sacrifice of Isaac, where God asked Abraham to sacrifice his only son as a test of faith. The scripture reads, "Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. So God's kind of like, psych, just kidding, don't do that, don't kill your son, I was just kidding, dude. Oh my me. In this ancient tale, Abraham's faith is rewarded when God spares Isaac at the last minute. However, in The Binding of Isaac, it takes this premise and distorts it into a dark, surreal nightmare. Isaac's mother hears a voice from God, instructing her to sacrifice her son, but rather than any divine intervention to stop it, Isaac has to take matters into his own hands. In a panic, Isaac will flee to the basement of their home, a grotesque, monster-filled labyrinth. And this isn't your standard creepy dungeon. This game draws heavily on religious symbolism, body horror, and Isaac's childlike fears. You'll encounter everything from monstrous versions of his family members to enemies made out of literal poop. The dungeon itself seems like a reflection of Isaac's mind, a twisted, claustrophobic place filled with guilt, punishment, and suffering. But I feel like I need to talk about the poop thing for a second. For some odd reason, there is so much poop in this game. It's littering the dungeons. A lot of the monsters are made of poop. I don't know why there's so much poop in this game, but there's so much poop. And this probably isn't the last time I'll say poop in this video. That's such a funny word, poop. But the story isn't told in a traditional sense. There's very little dialogue or cutscenes. Instead, the game relies on its grotesque imagery, cryptic endings, and symbolic items to tell the story. It's a game that's open to interpretation, where the real horror isn't necessarily the monsters you fight, but the deeper themes of parental abuse, religious zealotry, and childhood trauma that underpin the entire experience. At the end of the day, the narrative of The Binding of Isaac is as much about confronting Isaac's inner demons as it is about facing physical ones. If you played any roguelike, you know that gameplay is king, and The Binding of Isaac delivers in spades. The core gameplay loop is simple, yet endlessly compelling. You explore procedurally generated dungeons, room by room, defeating enemies, collecting power-ups, and trying to survive for as long as possible. But let's break that down a little more. Isaac starts each run as a fragile, crying boy with a single-shot attack, his tears. These tears act as your main weapon throughout the game, but as you progress, the game throws a plethora of items and power-ups your way that drastically change how Isaac plays. These items aren't just passive stat boosts either, they can fundamentally alter your character's abilities, and that's where The Binding of Isaac really shines. These power-ups are transformative, offering you entirely new ways to approach combat and exploration. And then the synergies, combinations of items that interact in unexpected ways. You might get an item that turns your tears into bombs, and then another item that may make those bombs home in on enemies. The sheer variety of these combinations ensures that no two runs ever feel exactly the same. The game isn't without its challenges. There are plenty of power downs to worry about as well. These can come in the form of items that reduce your speed, lower your health, or add unwanted effects to your attacks. Managing these risks while trying to build a powerful run adds another layer of strategy to the game. You're always on your toes, balancing risk and reward, hoping that the next item you pick up will push your run to the next level. I think that was the most difficult part for me in this game early on, was learning what everything did, and the amount of times that I just ruined myself by picking up items, using them, and immediately going, I shouldn't have done that. Things that would spit my bullets into like different directions, and I'd have to wait for it to finish because it would ruin my ability to actually hit enemies, or losing stat boosts, things like that, that just, it would make it frustrating. But as you go and you learn, you start to realize like, oh, this is what I need. Don't use this. Get rid of this. This is really good. And you'll just figure out what you really need to use. And it makes it for a very interesting and variety-filled run every time you do it. The dungeon layouts are procedurally generated, so each new run presents you with a different room, configurations, enemy placements, and secrets to discover. Some rooms are packed with monsters that overwhelm you with numbers, while others contain tricky environmental hazards like spikes or flame traps. There's always something new to figure out, and the sense of discovery is constant throughout the game. And let's not forget the bosses. The Binding of Isaac has some of the most grotesque, challenging, and creative boss fights in the genre. Each boss has its own unique attack patterns and quirks. Some like Gemini are relentless in their pursuit of Isaac, while others like Gertie are static, but endlessly spawn minions to overwhelm you. And then there's the final boss, Mom. She's a brutal and chaotic fight where giant hands, eyes, and feet slam down on you from all directions. Every boss feels like a test of everything you've learned up to that point, and the sense of satisfaction from beating them is immense. I really like the boss fights in this game, but yes, some of them can be very, very difficult, especially the mom fight where she's doing a ton of damage and the foot comes out of nowhere. And if it weren't for the good, holy word of the Lord, I would not have been able to beat Mom for the first time. It took me several runs to get to this point. Then once I did, I was so close to dying, but I popped that Bible and bam, she was gone, and it just felt so good. And that's when I learned there's a bunch of different endings and stuff, and there's so much more to this game that I haven't done. It's crazy. Surviving in The Binding of Isaac requires more than just good reflexes. It demands adaptability, decision-making, and a willingness to embrace the chaos. Each run is a delicate balancing act between taking risks and playing it safe. Do you enter a cursed room in the hopes of finding a game-changing item, knowing full well that you could lose precious health in the process? Do you take that strange unknown item even though it might completely change how your tears work and potentially ruin your run? These are the kind of decisions that define the Isaac experience. Every run's different, and that's what makes survival so engaging. You can never get too comfortable or rely on one strategy. What worked in one run might not work in the next. That unpredictability forces you to think on your feet, react quickly, and constantly adjust your approach. Some runs are blessed with powerful item synergies that make you feel invincible, while others are cursed with bad luck, forcing you to scrape by with minimal health and weak items. It's that high-stake tension that keeps players coming back for more. The survivability in this game is crazy. The amount of times I might feel very powerful only to run into a room full of enemies that all take different strategies and would just melt my health, or like I was feeling very weak but I could progress really well, or some runs where I was just like, this is over from the get-go. It just, like, you can tell. The more you play, the more you're like, this isn't going to work. This strategy's not going to work. This build's not going to work. The items that I've been given are not going to do it for me. I'm not going to make it. If you're on the second or third floor and you're still shooting a single pellet, you're probably screwed. So the point of this video is to ask the question, is Binding of Isaac the best roguelike? So let's compare it to some other roguelikes to see if that's the case. But this is no easy task, because each one brings something unique to the table. Games like Hades, Dead Cells, and Enter the Gungeon are all standouts in the genre, each offering their own twist on the formula. So how does Isaac stack up? Let's start with Hades, a game I've played a lot of. One of the things Hades excels at is storytelling. It weaves a compelling narrative that unfolds over multiple runs, with characters you grow attached to and relationships that develop over time. The Binding of Isaac, on the other hand, takes a more abstract approach to storytelling. Instead of dialogue and cutscenes, Isaac tells its story through its environments, its enemies, and its items. The symbolism is dense, and the themes are dark. While Hades gives you clear and satisfying progression, Isaac lets you dig deep into its mysteries at your own pace, rewarding players who are willing to engage with its darker undertones. Then there's Enter the Gungeon. If you're a fan of fast-paced, twitchy, bullet hell gameplay, Gungeon is probably one of your favorites. I've played a little bit of it, wasn't my favorite, but it's tight, responsive, and chaotic. But while Gungeon focuses heavily on gunplay and dodging, Isaac excels in its versatility. The sheer number of items and power-ups in Isaac allow for a much wider range of playstyles. Want to shoot lasers from your eyes? You can do that. Want to summon a horde of spiders to fight for you? That's also possible. The depth and variety of Isaac's item pool give it a level of replayability that's hard to match. And then there's Dead Cells, which is known for its slick, fluid combat and polished presentation. The movement in Dead Cells is buttery smooth and every hit feels satisfying. But where Dead Cells shines in execution, Isaac thrives in chaos. The unpredictable nature of each run, the bizarre item combinations, and the grotesque aesthetic gives Isaac a raw, chaotic energy that few games can replicate. It's less polished, sure, but that's part of its charm. Each of these games brings something special to the table, but The Binding of Isaac stands out because of its depth, variety, and unpredictability. Hey, God, are we almost done here? Are you having fun?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. I was just checking. I'm almost done. We're going to talk about whether it's better than the others or not, okay?
Sounds good to me.
All right, cool. Then I can be done?
I guess so.
Okay, great. Thank you. So after comparing The Binding of Isaac to its peers, can we definitively say it's the best roguelike? It's a tough question to answer. Each game offers something different, and what you value most in a roguelike might influence your answer. For me, for example, Vampire Survivors is my favorite roguelike. It always has been, probably always will be, but after playing Binding of Isaac, that might change a little bit. If you're looking for a tightly woven narrative, Hades might win out. If you want fast-paced action, Gungeon might be more your speed. And if you prefer polished, fluid combat, Dead Cells might be your pick. But where Isaac excels in its depth, few games offer the sheer amount of content and replayability that Isaac does. With hundreds of items, dozens of characters, multiple endings, and a near infinite number of possible synergies, the game feels almost limitless. No matter how many times you play, there's always something new to discover. Additionally, The Binding of Isaac offers a unique mix of horror, humor, and dark themes that set it apart from other roguelikes. The grotesque imagery, the religious symbolism, and the disturbing enemies all create an atmosphere that's deeply unsettling, yet strangely captivating. It's a game that gets under your skin in a way that few others do. So is The Binding of Isaac the best roguelike? For me, it's certainly up there. I think Vampire Survivors still might be my favorite, but it's a game that manages to combine deep, complex gameplay with an eerie, unforgettable atmosphere. It challenges you, surprises you, and keeps you coming back for more, no matter how many times you think you've seen it all. While other roguelikes may have more polished graphics, tighter storylines, or smoother combat, Isaac's depth and unpredictability make it a true standout in the genre. There's simply nothing like it. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. It's good to be back. I'm excited to make more content like this, not only based around video games, but other things as well. I've got more videos coming down soon. I'm working on them right now, so I hope you look forward to those. Thank you for watching. I love you. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye. Why is this the hardest game I've ever played in my life? You know, some video games are easy, some are hard, and some just have those learning curves that take a long time to get used to, or if you're like me, you're never going to get used to. So today we're talking about video game genres that have very hard learning curves. Fighting games. If you're new to the genre, fighting games might look pretty straightforward. 2 characters, a handful of moves, and a fight to the finish. But ask any seasoned player, and they'll tell you that beneath that surface simplicity lies an intricate web of mechanics that take hours, days, even years to master. The learning curve in fighting games isn't just about learning each character's moveset. It's about understanding the meta, how different characters and strategies counter each other. It's about mastering frame data, knowing exactly how long a move takes to execute and how long you're vulnerable after using it. And then there's execution. Knowing what to do is one thing, pulling it off under pressure is another. On top of that, you've got psychological warfare. The best fighting game players don't just react, they anticipate. They read their opponent, bait them into making mistakes, and punish them for it. So it's not just about technical skill, it's about mind games too. Fighting games are one of those genres that, as a kid, I loved a lot. I remember on the Sega Genesis, I got Super Street Fighter II Championship Edition, and I loved playing it. But it wasn't until later on, when the internet became a thing and live streaming and videos, that you kind of started to learn that you might not be as good as you thought you were. And that was the case for me. When I watched anybody play Street Fighter or any other fighting game, I realized I'm not very good at this at all. That just the skill that it takes to be very good at fighting games is just, there's so many levels to it, and I just don't have any of those. I button mash. Even if I learn combos, I still don't do them very well. I don't know how to combo them. I'm not good at fighting games, and it's one that has a difficulty learning curve that's just, it takes so much skill, and I don't have that skill.
Smoke, so it could be really rough for Simple to actually get through this. He's going to throw the AWP in. Oh my god! Simple, what is happening?
Tactical shooters like Counter-Strike or Valorant are a completely different beast from your average FPS. These aren't games where you can run around aimlessly and rely on fast reflexes. In tactical shooters, patience, precision, and strategy are everything. You have to master map knowledge, every nook, cranny, and potential angle your enemies can use against you. But it's not just the map, it's also the economy. You've got to manage your team's finances, buy the right weapons and equipment at the right time, make a bad purchase, and it could cripple your team's chances for multiple rounds. Then there's the utility. Smokes, flashes, grenades, special abilities. It's not just about shooting, it's about positioning, cutting off sight lines, and using every tool at your disposal to outsmart the enemy. And let's not forget game sense, the ability to predict where your enemies are based on sound, positioning, and your own team's movements. It's no wonder the skill ceiling in tactical shooters is so high. Tactical shooters, another that I am just not good at. I just don't have the knowledge of these games to play them very well. I remember playing the very early versions of Counter-Strike with my friend and enjoying it, But as the game progressed, I just remember getting less and less good at it because it just became so much more complicated. Guns with certain backfires and ranges and sights, and it all just got so complicated, and I just kind of gave up. If I wanted to play a first-person shooter team-based game, I'm just going to play Overwatch because it's not as complicated. And Overwatch fans, don't come at me. It's just easier than some of the other ones.
Mysteriously disappear.
What?
Or be sent on a walk.
I like walking.
Into the fog of war.
Fuck.
Real-time strategy games, or RTS, are one of the most mentally demanding genres out there. While tactical shooters require you to make split-second decisions, RTS games require you to manage an entire empire in real time. You're not just controlling a handful of units, you're overseeing economy, military, tech upgrades, and map control all at once. The learning curve in RTS comes from the need to constantly juggle multiple tasks. There's a macro management side. While you're managing your resources, expanding your base, and researching new technologies, every decision you make has long-term consequences. Expand too fast, and you risk overextending. Expand too slow, and you'll fall behind. But then there's micromanagement, controlling individual units during combat. In high-level RTS play, success often comes down to precise control over your units, splitting them to avoid damage, focusing fire, and using special abilities at the exact right moment. It's this balance of long-term strategy and short-term tactics that makes RTS games so challenging, but also incredibly rewarding once you get the hang of it. Real-time strategy games are another one of those where, as a kid, I really enjoyed playing them, stuff like Age of Empires, I played some StarCraft, only to learn that I am not good at them at all. I do not have the reflexes or the APM to handle playing these games on a high level. If you've ever watched StarCraft 2 or any of the RTS games that are very popular, watch someone on Twitch or on YouTube, you'll see the level at which you need to get to be very, very good at these games. You can play them casually like I do, where I just like to kind of fart around and like move things and just enjoy the game. But when it comes to being very good at RTSs, it's a whole nother level, and I'm not there.
What is this misfortune? I'm gonna lose my fucking mind!
MOBAs are some of the most popular and most intimidating genres out there. At first glance, games like League of Legends or Dota 2 seem simple. 5 players on each team, pushing lanes and taking down towers. But underneath that straightforward premise lies a depth of strategy that can take hundreds of hours to truly grasp. The learning curve in MOBAs comes from the sheer amount of information you need to absorb. First, there's the champion pool. In a game like League, you get over 150 characters to choose from, each with their own unique abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. You need to understand not just your character, but also how they match up against your opponent's picks. This means learning counter picks, knowing when to engage, when to retreat, and how to build your character based on the situation. Then there's map awareness. MOBAs are all about controlling space, knowing when to push lanes, when to rotate, and when to go for objectives like dragons or towers. And like tactical shooters, MOBAs require team coordination. A single poorly timed ability or miscommunication can lead to a devastating team wipe. And let's not forget the constantly shifting meta. What works one patch may be completely ineffective the next, and staying on top of those changes adds another layer of complexity. MOBAs are one of those game genres that I've just never really gotten into. I just haven't. Because I look at them and I think I don't want to take the time to learn these games. I have friends that play League of Legends, and they make it seem like it is a nightmare to play. It's not fun. They hate it, but at the same time, they play it a lot anyways. But for me, MOBAs are just not one of those I've touched, but I've seen people play them. I've seen high school players play them, and I'm just like, it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing.
Pour a hammer down. Go!
Factory management sims like Factorio or Satisfactory are a different kind of challenge. These games aren't about fast reflexes or tactical thinking. They're about optimization, planning, and efficiency. At first, it seems simple. Gather resources, build machines, produce goods, but as your factory grows, the complexity ramps up fast. The learning curve comes from managing logistics. How do you get resources from point A to point B as efficiently as possible? How do you scale up production without bottlenecks? Every little detail matters, from the layout of your machines to the speed of your conveyor belts. One inefficiency can cause the entire system to ground to a halt. And as your factory grows, so do the challenges. You'll need to manage automation, research new technologies, and eventually deal with things like power consumption and resource depletion. The game becomes a puzzle, one that's constantly evolving as you expand and optimize your factory. Factory management sims, another one that I've only played a little bit of, like Factorio or Satisfactory, and I've learned quickly this game is not for me. It takes too much micromanagement, which I hate. I can't do micromanagement, so to play these games is just not fun for me. But the learning curve I can understand and appreciate and respect at how much is involved in playing these games and being good at them, or at least just playing them in a general sense. They're so complicated and complex that I don't find the time. But if you enjoy these games, you know the nuances that come with playing this type of genre and how difficult but rewarding it can be. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate all the love on these videos lately. It's felt good to just kind of get into a normal routine where I'm not uploading every day and can just enjoy the content that I make and make it a little better than it used to be. So thank you for watching. Thanks to all the members. I appreciate you very much. You can become a member for as low as $2, or you could join the Discord. There's all kinds of things you can do. You could subscribe if you want to. But I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye. First up, I think this one is a given, and that is Animal Crossing. Oh, what's happening? Someone just subscribed. Hello. You're going to be the first part of this video. Hey, what's good, everybody? It's your video game dad here, and today we're going to talk about positivity and the games that just bring that positive vibe, the ones that just make you feel good, or the ones that just don't make you feel bad. So let's talk about some of those today, and as you look at this list, let me know if you have any positive gaming experiences down below, and I'd love to talk to you about them, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I'm going to start off with what I think is a very easy choice when it comes to games that are just positive and make you feel good, and that is Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is just one of those games that I don't think there's anything negative about it. I don't know. I think the only negative thing is like maybe you don't get the neighbors that you want, like the villagers that you'd like, or maybe you have found the bugs already that you already found, you know, that kind of thing. But just overall, it's just a sense of positivity in this game. You're making friends, you're building your house, you're paying off your debt to Tom Nook. Everything about this game feels so good. You can fly to other islands, meet new people, play games, it's so much fun. And who would have thought that just like digging holes and putting in trees and getting neighbors and like all this stuff is just so positive. I feel like you can't play Animal Crossing and not feel positivity when you're playing it. It's just such a great game. Even my wife, who doesn't really play video games, when I let her play Animal Crossing, I got it strictly for her because it wasn't a game for me, really. She loved it, got addicted to it because of how good it made her feel, to the point where I was like, maybe I'll play. And I started enjoying it. I'm like, now I see why people enjoyed this game so much. It's just so positive and so much fun and so lighthearted and cute and adorable, and I could go on, but I think everybody already knows enough about Animal Crossing to know how much of a positive game it is. Second on this list is yet another game that feels kind of like Animal Crossing. It is Stardew Valley. And this was a game that I put off for a very, very long time because I don't like farming sims and it was a little too laid back for me. And then I took some time to actually play it. And boy, is it a feel-good game. I mean, you get to build your farm that you got given to you by your granddad, and you get to meet all these people, and it's just small-town living. Everything's, real relaxed, and everything's real simple, except for that, science lab or whatever. Everything's just old and vintage. It just feels so nice to just be away from it all, and just farming, and cutting down trees, and knocking down rocks, and fishing, and, it does sound like Animal Crossing a lot. And meeting all these people, I think the only not positive part of this is you could get turned down by your love interest if you're like, I'm really into that one, and they're like, nah, I'm not feeling you as much. Maybe that's the only negative, but I feel like otherwise it's just a positive game. Like there's just so much to do, and it's also lighthearted and carefree, and it's just so relaxing. I play so much, like Hearthstone, which is competitive, and sometimes I play like Overwatch or Marvel's Rivals recently, where it's just so fast-paced and so intense. So it's nice to just, and those games cause so much negativity for me. I get so mad that it's nice to play a game like Stardew Valley and just go, man, this is just so nice. It makes me feel so good and so positive. Next up on the list, we have a game that I've only played a little bit of, but I know people love this game. It is just, I don't want to say a cult classic because I think it's pretty popular, but it's also not known, I think, in the mainstream. And that's the game Celeste. What a beautiful game. What a beautiful game. You're trying to get to the top of the mountain. It's the story. You're trying to get to the top of the mountain, and you just got to get there. But there's nothing but positive vibes on the way up as it teaches you how to love yourself and love others and just be self-confident and get to the top of that mountain. And you're going to do so in what I think is a very fun, engaging, and well-made platforming game. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. People know about Celeste. They love it. There's all kinds of, speed runs for it, which I really enjoy. There's an N64 version of it that was played at the most recent GDQ. I just think overall Celeste has a great message. It's just a great game, and it's just so positive, just so feel good. And I hope you go and play it sometime. I'm going to try and get back into it. I need to, and I think you can pretty much pick it up for free these days. It's not free, but it is so cheap that it might as well be free. Go pick up Celeste and play it. So this next game is one of my favorite series of all time since I was a child when they were first released to now, and that's Pokemon. I think Pokemon is one of the most positive gaming vibes out there, bar all the fact that they've kind of gone in a low-quality direction. I think that you can't deny the fact that this game is positive. It's just about making friends, getting pals, fighting, making your way on your journey to get all the gym badges, and just become the best there ever was. You turn your cap backwards and you just go for it. And it just feels so good. It's so positive. You can't feel bad playing a Pokemon game, minus the quality thing, and minus the fact that the lore says that there was a war, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not what makes this game positive. It's just how laid back and relaxed and fun these games can be. Just getting your pals, leveling them up, continuing your journey, meeting new people, all the funny stuff that goes on. My Rattata's in the top 1% or whatever. It's a delightful series. And, I grew up playing the originals. I had Pokemon Blue, I had Pokemon Yellow. Then I kind of got out of it because I was getting a little older, not to realize that 20 years down the road, people are going to fall back in love with this. And it was a thing that even adults could enjoy. So I do. I love the Pokemon series. I still play it to this day, and I still enjoy it. And I'm going to continue enjoying it because it's a fun, positive game that just makes you feel real good, just like the other ones before it. So I don't know. I don't have to say go play Pokemon because you have. There's probably people watching this that are playing it at this moment. If that's you're playing Pokemon while watching this, let me know. Here's my final item on the list. The Legend of Zelda series has a bunch of different games with many different themes, and a lot of them are very dark and kind of gloomy. Think of them like Majora's Mask. But I feel like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is just a positive experience. It's just so fun. Now, there is the threat of Ganon looming, but you don't have to approach that right away unless you're a speedrunner and you just go straight to Ganon. But if you're not and you just want to enjoy the game, there's so much life in this world. It's just a big, expansive world. It's the first time Zelda went this direction, and it paid off big time with the amount of exploration you can do, all the shrines, all the people you can meet, and just how overall just feels good. Like you're never bored. I have a friend who continues to play Breath of the Wild because there's so much that you can do. He's just like, I can just keep playing it forever. He's probably moved on to Tears of the Kingdom. But Breath of the Wild is one of those games that I feel like is just so positive. There's nothing to make you just feel bad. You just feel good the whole time you're playing. It's a positive experience. There's so much to do, and it's so enjoyable, and I am ranting about a game that everybody loves, which I feel like is just this list in general for the most part. I'm talking about games that everybody loves, so I can't sit here and try and sell you on them like some of my other videos. But I will say that if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, I know that's probably 0 people, but if you haven't, definitely go play it because it's one of the most feel-good Zelda experiences, and it's a feel-good experience, positive experience from beginning to end. Even when you kill Ganon, you're like, yeah, that feels good. I'm positive, all right? Thank you. Okay, cool. So that was just a few of the positive games that we have out there in the world. We focus on a lot of the negative stuff these days, so I figured I'd focus a little bit on the positivity of the world, especially in video games. So again, if you have a game that you think is positive or has positive vibes or makes you feel good, let me know down in the comments below. You can be like my community members like Tired Link, who said Fireworks Simulator, or Myler Styler, who said Blockhead game. He wants me to play the Blockhead game so bad. I promise you I will on stream sometime. But if you have one, let me know down below. Thanks for watching. I'll do another one of these next week probably. I love all the support that I've been getting on these. These videos do great, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for watching. I love you. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye. C-Man. I'm coming for you. You're next, C-Man. You ever played a video game that's just weird, makes no sense, is unusual, and you wonder why it even was created in the first place? Well, that's what we're talking about today, so let's talk about some unusual video games. Let's start with a game that made cleaning up the planet weirdly fun, Katamari Damacy. Released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2, this cult classic has you playing as the Prince of all Cosmos, tasked with rolling a sticky ball called a Katamari, and as you roll the Katamari around, it picks up anything and everything in its path. At first, you're picking up small things, thumbtacks, erasers, maybe a pin or two, but before long, you're rolling up entire buildings, cars, and even islands. The goal? To recreate the stars your father, the king of all cosmos, accidentally destroyed. Yeah, this game doesn't really do normal. But that's what makes it so satisfying. The bigger your Katamari grows, the more absurd it becomes. There's something strangely cathartic about rolling up everything in sight while a quirky soundtrack plays in the background. It's chaotic, it's bizarre, and it's totally unforgettable. Katamari Damacy was one of the first weird games I ever knew. I remember seeing it on X-Play, and their thing was like, oh, look at how weird and kooky this game is. Nowadays, by today's standards, it's not very weird. It's actually very normal. But back then in 2004, when it came out, it was like, this is just bizarre and makes no sense. Why does this game even exist? Why am I rolling up things as the Prince of all Cosmos? Well, nowadays it's not as weird, but back then this game was bizarre, and I love it. I love this game so much. It's so much fun. And they even made a sequel, which is also delightful. Next up, we have I Am Bread, a game where, you guessed it, you play as a slice of bread. But this isn't just any slice of bread. It's bread with a mission. And that mission? To become toast. This physics-based adventure has you navigating different rooms, from kitchens to living rooms, all while trying to avoid getting dirty, soggy, or crushed. But here's the twist. The controls are intentionally clumsy. Each corner of the bread is controlled separately, making even the simplest movements feel like a Herculean task. Imagine flopping around a kitchen, trying to get from the counter to the toaster without touching the floor. Because of course, nobody likes floor bread. It's hilarious, frustrating, and weirdly compelling. Turning a slice of bread into toast has never felt so challenging or so bizarre. I Am Bread is one of those games that I'm just like, this is one of those where I'm like, I don't know why this even exists. And it was huge when it came out. Every YouTuber, PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, they all played it because it was cool. It was like, oh, I'm bread, and the goal is to be toast. It's during that time where it was just everybody's getting experimental and seeing what they could get away with. Things like Goat Simulator, where you're just like, what is this? It's so weird. And the premise is simple yet silly. And for whatever reason, I Am Bread worked very well. I played it a little bit. It was like QWOP, but you're trying to get to a toaster. I don't know. It's a toast game. Become toast. I Am Bread.
Hello. Welcome to the laboratory of Jean-Paul Gasset.
Now we're entering the territory of truly strange with Seaman, a Dreamcast game that's as unsettling as it is unique. In Seaman, you raise a fish with a human face, and yes, it's as creepy as it sounds. This isn't just a virtual pet game, though. Seaman talks to you, asks questions, and even responds to your voice commands thanks to the microphone accessory. This game requires you to care for Seaman and guide him through his life stages, all while having increasingly strange conversations. There's something almost unsettling about talking to this human-faced fish as it stares into your soul. The gameplay might be simple, feeding him, adjusting his tank, but the real draw here is the bizarre dialogue and interactions. It's a game that's both ahead of its time in terms of voice recognition and totally bizarre in concept. Seaman was one of those games that it was during that time where it was like, oh, let's get you to interact with the game by talking to it. They were just these games, it's like, what was the other one? Hey You Pikachu on the N64 that also didn't work well. I think Seaman worked a little better, where you just talk to this fish guy. Look at him. Oh, wrong way. This guy? And he would just say weird things and like grow, and as you go, he'd ask weirder and more personal questions. Thank God it wasn't connected to the internet, because I feel like nowadays, if this game existed, this would be a way to harvest your personal information for nefarious uses. That's just my thought. I feel like that's my conspiracy theory. If Seaman existed today, they're using that to steal your data, like everything else is. But Seaman was just funny, silly, and it was one of those video games where it's like, if this is all it is it really a video game? I guess it was. It was just unusual and weird.
Welcome to the home of the Yamada family.
If you've ever wondered what it's like to be a mosquito, well, wonder no more. Mr. Mosquito lets you live that fantasy, or nightmare, as you buzz around a Japanese family's home trying to suck their blood without getting caught. Your goal is to feed off different family members, but you need to be careful. If they notice you, they'll swat you, and it's game over. The gameplay involves carefully sneaking up on your targets, landing on them, and extracting just the right amount of blood without triggering their defenses. It's part stealth game, part survival game, and 100% strange. The premise alone is weird enough, but add in the family's reactions and the oddly detailed environments, and you've got a game that's truly in a league of its own. There's something oddly satisfying about pulling off the perfect bite without getting squashed. Mr. Mosquito was one that I never played, but I do remember seeing it again on X-Play. I feel like X-Play plays a part in all of these games, pretty much. It's a weird little game where you play as a mosquito and you're trying to just suck the blood out of everybody around you without getting swatted, without getting hit, and just trying to live as a mosquito. Mr. Mosquito, he was funny looking. He had big old eyes. But this is one of those I didn't play, but I remember how unusual it was to see a game like this. This next game puts a whole new spin on driving by making you a bear behind the wheel. EnviroBear 2000 is a physics-based driving game where you control a bear trying to collect enough food before hibernation. That means you have to drive, steer, and grab all the food at the same time, leading to some of the most chaotic driving you've ever seen. Everything about this game feels like an accident waiting to happen. The physics are hilariously wonky, the bear can barely see through the windshield, and yet it's absurdly fun in a so bad it's kind of good way. EnviroBear 2000 is the epitome of chaotic charm. Oh, EnviroBear. I remember this one. There's actually, see if I can find a clip of me playing this game on my YouTube channel way back in the day. This one was silly, chaotic. You just drive around trying to store up food for hibernation, making sure you can make it through the winter. But you're a bear driving a car, which is just hysterical. And I loved it so much when I played it back in the day. Another big one with Let's Players back in the day. It was just real silly, real short. But it also watched a speed run of this. There's speed runs of this game, and it's pretty crazy how good people are at what is supposed to be just a technically clunky and unserious and unusual game.
One of the first things which everybody should understand.
Let's end with a game where you can, well, be everything. In this philosophical sandbox game, aptly titled Everything, you can play as animals, plants, rocks, planets, or even entire galaxies. The game lets you seamlessly switch between entities, exploring the world for every possible perspective. The beauty of Everything is in its scope and its message. It's less about traditional gameplay and more about exploration and connection. As you move between different forms, the game reflects on the nature of existence, life, and how everything is interconnected. It's a meditative experience that challenges the very notion of what a game can be. You're not playing everything to win, you're playing to explore, to reflect, and to experience a world where, literally, you can be anything. It's a thought-provoking, weird, and unlike any other game out there. Everything is one of those games where you get to literally be everything. It's a great experimental little indie title. I had a lot of fun playing it. I didn't play it on the channel or anything, but I just played it back in the day. And it's just so quirky and weird to think that it's just, how can you perceive the world through all these different things? You can literally be everything, and I loved it. It was a great little indie title. All right, thank you for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun making this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Discord, maybe become a member, all that good stuff. I love you. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye. Hey, excuse me, sir, do you have any idea who set this entire village on fire? Yeah, I think this guy did it. Today we're talking about the worst of the worst in video games, the villains and the baddies, and the ones that we have to defeat by the end of the game. So we're going to talk about those today, and make sure to let me know down below in the comments, what's your favorite video game villain? One of the most iconic villains in gaming history, Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. Sephiroth's power, his haunting theme, and his deep connection to the protagonist make him a villain who stays with players long after the credits roll. Sephiroth's tragic fall from being a celebrated hero soldier to a figure of madness and destruction is what makes him compelling. When he uncovers the truth of his origins, that he's the result of an unethical experiment, his entire worldview collapses. His quest for revenge is personal, turning him from a savior into a destroyer. His motivation isn't just about power, it's about reclaiming control of his identity, which makes him a relatable but terrifying villain. Sephiroth's infamous act of killing Aerith is one of the most shocking moments in gaming. It establishes him as a cruel and calculating antagonist, leaving players with a personal vendetta to settle. His towering presence, both physically and symbolically, make every confrontation with him feel epic. Few villains have the same emotional weight as Sephiroth, and his legacy as one of gaming's greatest is well deserved. We'll go ahead and start off with Sephiroth. I think my first true villain in video games. I'd seen the Bowsers and the Dr. Eggmans, or Dr. Robotnik, if that's what you'd like to call him. But I think Sephiroth was the first true villain that I experienced in gaming, and boy, was he threatening. I just remember being like, oh, this dude's evil. He killed a giant snake that we couldn't fight. He burned down an entire village. He's doing all these crazy, terrible things. And as you go through the story, you start to realize just how messed up this guy is. And look, if I was lied to about where I came from and who I was, and it turned out that my mom was an alien, I'd probably go a little crazy too. But just the sheer terrifying nature of Sephiroth makes him I think, one of the greatest video game villains of all time. And those last few fights with him are just so epic. I know, I'm a Final Fantasy fanboy if you've never watched the channel. I love Final Fantasy so much, but Sephiroth is definitely one of the greatest video game villains of all time.
We've got mountains of content, some better, some worse. If none of it's of interest to you, you'd be the first.
Switching to a more cerebral villain, GLaDOS from Portal is one of gaming's most witty and unsettling antagonists. At first, GLaDOS seems like a helpful guide, offering calm instructions to help players through Aperture Science's puzzle chambers, but her true nature soon reveals itself as she begins to taunt and threaten the player with unsettling calm. GLaDOS is memorable not just because of her villainy, but because of her brilliant, dark humor. Voiced by Ellen McLean, her passive-aggressive dialogue constantly walks the line between funny and terrifying. She toys with players psychologically, making us question everything about our environment and objectives. In Portal 2, her backstory is fleshed out, revealing she was once human, adding tragic layers to her character. This blend of humor, intellect, and underlying menace makes GLaDOS one of the most unique villains in gaming. She's not just an AI gone rogue, she's a master of manipulation, pulling the strings and keeping players on edge with every sarcastic quip. GLaDOS is the first example of a villain that you don't think is a villain at first. They play a character that makes you think they're just there to help you, and then by the time you get to the end of the game, you're like, oh, they're actually evil and they want me to die. Portal is just one of those games. I love it so much, especially Portal 2. Oh my god, Portal 2 is just so good. And I love playing it with friends. It's just one of those games that I think will stand the test of time because it's made so well. But the villain within the Portal series, GLaDOS, is just so well done. I think it's just a wonderful character. That stupid robot. A villain who embodies pure evil and power, Ganondorf is a recurring antagonist in the Legend of Zelda series, and his presence looms large over Hyrule. His quest for the Triforce and his unquenchable thirst for power make him a classic villain, but his depth lies in how he represents the darkest side of ambition. In many games, Ganondorf's motivation seems simple. He wants to rule the world and plunge it into darkness. But his backstory, particularly in games like The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, gives him additional layers. He's not just an evil tyrant, he's a leader driven by the harsh reality of the desert life he came from, believing that the world should bend to his will so that he can create a better life for his people, the Gerudo. Ganondorf's transformations from his human form to the monstrous Ganon represent his descent into unbridled chaos. Every battle against him feels monumental, as he serves as the perfect counterpart to Link's heroism. He's the archetypal villain, and his presence in the Zelda series has become legendary over the decades. Ganondorf from the Legend of Zelda series is one of those that I think you could put in with like Dr. Robotnik or Bowser because he's one of those old school villains, but later on in the series, as the Zelda games went on, you actually get a little more in-depth look into Ganondorf, and he's not as simple as you would think he is. You know, growing up in the Gerudo Valley and being the leader and like having to deal with the troubles that come with living in a desert situation like that make him a little more understanding of why he is the way he is. But at the end of the day, he's just mean, and he keeps coming back for some reason, and there's all these timelines, and I could go on and on about Zelda, but there's probably a 4-hour video you could watch on that explains the entire Zelda timeline. So I'm just going to say that Ganondorf is bad. A villain that transcends the traditional role of an antagonist, Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2 is more than just a terrifying figure. He's a manifestation of the protagonist's guilt and inner torment. Pyramid Head is one of the most haunting and symbolic villains in horror gaming. Pyramid Head doesn't speak or have a clear agenda in the way other villains do. Instead, he looms over the player as a silent executioner, his presence tied directly to James Sunderland's psychological state. He appears as a relentless force, wielding his massive blade and moving with a slow, methodical menace, making every encounter with him a terrifying experience. What makes Pyramid Head so memorable is the way he represents deeper, more disturbing themes of punishment and repression. He's not just there to kill James, he's a physical embodiment of James' guilt over his wife's death, making him a villain who is deeply personal and emotionally resonant. Pyramid Head's design, with his angular helmet and imposing stature, has become one of the most iconic visuals in horror gaming, ensuring his place as one of the most unsettling and memorable antagonists. So I've been playing Silent Hill 2 recently, the remake, and God, I love it so much. It's such a nice upgrade to the original version, and it just reminded me how much Pyramid Head terrifies me. He's a manifestation of all these terrible things through someone's life, and James in particular in Silent Hill 2. And it's just terrifying how it doesn't talk, it just menacingly does stuff. It just drags a giant sword and it's humping these like mannequins with multiple legs. It's just so creepy and so weird, and I just hate it so much. But I love at the end of the game, and spoiler alert, when they both, there's two pyramid heads, and you kill them, and then they basically off themselves, because it's a way of saying you've gone past that, you're moving forward. And I won't go too much into Silent Hill 2. I could make a whole video about that game, but Pyramid Head is just so terrifying and off-putting and gross and just so evil. I love it so much.
Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible.
Andrew Ryan, the founder of Rapture and BioShock, is a villain who represents ideological extremism and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Unlike traditional antagonists, Andrew Ryan's villainy lies in his utopian vision, which spirals into dystopia. He's not a maniacal tyrant, but rather a man so dedicated to his ideals that he becomes blind to their consequences. Ryan's belief in objectivism, the philosophy that individualism and self-interest should drive society, leads him to create Rapture, an underwater city free from government oversight and societal control. However, his ideals lead to the city's downfall, as Rapture becomes a chaotic, nightmarish place overrun by genetic experiments and civil war. Ryan's refusal to see the flaws in his vision makes him a tragic figure as much as a villain. What makes Andrew Ryan truly unforgettable is his famous confrontation with the player. His lines, "A man chooses, a slave obeys," and "Would you kindly?" paired with the forced nature of your encounter, turn BioShock's entire narrative on its head. The player is forced to confront the illusion of choice in both the game and in life, making Ryan one of the most philosophically engaging villains in gaming. This last one, this has got to be one of my favorite villains of all time, and it's only because of the twist that comes. It's kind of like GLaDOS from Portal, where you think you're being helped by someone the whole time, and he gets you at the last minute. Very rarely in video games do I have like one of those like, oh shit moments. Like, I did not see this coming at all. I even played it way after it came out because I got it cheap on Steam, and the spoiler had not been ruined for me, surprisingly. And I just remember, like, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, I've been being led along this whole time. I've been tricked because of this one phrase, and this guy's actually evil, and I had no idea. I think what makes a good villain is that you can't tell they're a villain right away. And this Andrew Ryan in BioShock is just the perfect example of that, where you don't know he's the villain until he's ready to let you know he's the villain. And just chef's kiss. It's beautiful. So those are some bad guys from video games. I don't know if your list coincides with mine or if you have some different opinions. Let me know down below. Maybe you think Sephiroth's the weenie, or you think the Pyramid Head isn't that scary. Let me know down below. I love talking to people about this kind of stuff to see where your opinion differs from mine. And I appreciate all opinions. So let me know down in the comments below what villain is your favorite. And while you're down there, maybe subscribe, like the video, check out the Discord. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll see you next week with another green screen video. Okay, I love you. Bye. You know, as someone who makes videos on a regular basis and used to make them on a daily basis, there's a lot of video ideas I have that just don't really pan out, or I can't get enough information or research, or I don't feel like they're worth being part of a video or an entire video. So today what I want to talk about is some of the video ideas that I've had and either just haven't had the time to do them or scrap the idea completely and get your opinion on whether you'd like to see these videos in the future because, just because I haven't done them doesn't mean they might not ever happen. So let's talk about some of them right now and let me know down below what you think of these ideas while you're liking and subscribing and all that good stuff. So if there's something you noticed about my videos, especially as of late, they're relatively short, with all things considered. They're usually less than 10 minutes, maybe a few minutes more, but they're never longer than that. And I do that in the sense that I like to talk about a topic, but get in and out. I don't feel like it needs to be over-explained or too dived into. And that's why I want to talk about something that I was going to make a video on, but I felt like it might just kind of be me complaining too much about one particular thing and just not having enough to really go off of. And that's the length of certain video game videos that just describe the plot of a game, walk you beat by beat through these stories, and don't really offer much else. I feel like they're just kind of pointless in a way. If you want to experience a video game, don't just watch someone play it or, watch someone explain it. Play it yourself, because I feel like the best way to enjoy video game is to actually play it yourself. Now, understand there are some times where like you can't afford a video game or you don't have access to a game or it's an older game that you just don't want to take the time to find the availability for. But for me, it's just kind of, these videos are just too long for no reason other than just they slowly point out beat by beat. Here's this game. Here's Elden Ring. And I'm going to tell you step by step every single thing that happens. Or here's a old PC game that I'm just going to tell you every little bit about it without going into the backstory or any of the creative choices. It's just, here's the game. This happens, this happens, this happens. And I was like, I just don't have enough for this video, so I'm just not going to do it. But, there are some creators that make these very long, in-depth, researched reviews of games that I think are really good. So I'll put a couple up here of the channels that I really like to do these kind of things. I also thought about when I was going to make this video that I made it like 3 hours long, but like 2 hours and 50 minutes of it was like nothing, just so you thought it was a super long video and then it wasn't. Again, just one of those bits that I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's too much time, processing and putting up and upload time and all that stuff. So I've just kind of scrapped the idea. Maybe I'll get around to it if I can add more to it, or maybe it'll just become part of some other list. But for now, it's just kind of sitting on the back burner. Another one I was going to that I think would just have been me complaining was that there's too many simulator games. This was a more recent idea because of the explosion of simulator games that exist nowadays. You have all these different games that are basically just you're working a job. I know that it's recently become such a big deal because of the TCG simulator game that came out that's actually a lot of fun. And while you're still working a job, you get to crack open packs and like create your collection. It adds those pieces that make it more enjoyable, while there's all these simulator games that are just getting pumped out that are just these simulating mundane jobs like trash collector simulator, and there's game store simulator, grocery store simulator, supermarket simulator, hairdresser simulator. There's all these games that are just, they seem unnecessary. Like, I don't really get the point of having so many of these. I understand that there's a market for them. Obviously, they wouldn't exist if there wasn't. But for me, it seems so pointless. That's just my opinion, and something that, again, I felt like was just too much of a, I'm just going to sit here and complain about this. And, I've also talked about simulators in other videos that just, it fit more in line with the theme that I was going with. So with this one, it was just like, I'm not going to spend a whole video complaining about one particular thing, just like the video game video length. So that one just kind of is probably never going to happen. Learning to speed run. Now, this is one that I thought I would really enjoy doing, but there's a couple of reasons I have not done it or just haven't done it yet. And that's one, there's tons of videos of people learning to speedrun, whether that's like the whole gimmick of their video is just, I'm going to learn how to speedrun a game in particular. There's some great videos on that. As well as just, if you want to watch speedruns, go watch speedruns. I do videos on speedrunning itself, on the GDQ events and my favorite runs from those. And I don't have the time or the capacity to learn how to speedrun a game. I want to, and inevitably I'll probably get around to it when I have more time. But for right now, I don't have the time. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of skill, and a lot of practice that I just don't have time for. It's an incredible skill for gamers. I think it's so interesting. And I think if you have not checked out speedrunning at all, you should definitely go do it because it's so much fun. The videos that I kind of posted around here are the ones that really show my love of speedrunning. So maybe I'll get around to it. I always thought if I did, it would probably be Star Fox 64. I can complete that game pretty quick just casually. So I thought if I learned how to speedrun it, that'd be fun. So maybe I'll get around to that. Or if you think there's another game I should learn how to speedrun, I will do so. If it's like one of those 10-hour speedruns, I ain't doing it. But, you know, maybe I'll get around to it at some point. This one, I don't know why I wrote this in, but I just wrote video game randomizers. I think randomizers in video games are super cool and interesting and fun to do. But they take there's a couple of aspects to that I just keep me from doing this kind of video. One, I've kind of moved away from Let's Plays and just straight up playing video games. I still do it every once in a while. There'll probably be one in the next week or two, but you know, sometimes I have stepped away from just straight up playing video games, unless you catch the live streams where I do play video games, and it's a lot of fun, so you should come check it out. But anyways, there's so many fun games that are randomized. Pokemon, I think, is the biggest one. There's all kinds of randomizers for that. Just, you know, look on TikTok or YouTube, you can find anybody playing a Pokemon randomizer. The one I really wanted to do, but I've had trouble technically getting it to work, is Final Fantasy Tactics. I still want to try and get that to work, but I just haven't had any luck. And usually when I do these kind of like things, I just either can get it to work right away, or it takes a bunch of troubleshooting and I never get it to work, and I just say, forget it, I'll try again another time. This is the case with this topic. And I thought about maybe making a video where I do a bunch of different randomizers and see how they kind of play out. But again, that takes a lot of time, a lot of game time, and a lot of effort. And I don't have time right now. Because I'm a big boy with a job and a wife and a dog and all these things that prevent me from doing certain things. But it's a good idea. Maybe it'll get done sooner or later. And the final one, this is just one that, again, I think could have been a part of another themed video that is just part of the list that I create. And that's with the clickbait title for videos called Games You've Never Played. And I think if I look back, I'll have to look, but I'm pretty sure I'm guilty of this as well, entitling it Game You've Never Played. You know, ... game you've never played. And it's always like some game that, of course, people have played it. You know, sometimes you can get away with it and it's like, oh, I've never seen this game. But for the most part, you know, with the internet, people are just aware of games existing. And I feel like it's like, oh, I'm playing Fear and Hunger. It's like people have heard of Fear and Hunger. It's a very popular game. It's not as, you know, unknown as it used to be back in the day. It's very well known now. You know, where it's like, I'm playing Minecraft. You never played Minecraft. You never played Roblox or, you know, something like that. I'm playing Overwatch, the game you've never played. It's like, kind of tricky and kind of ridiculous that we do that. But, and another one of those that, like, I just feel like if I talked about it, I'd just complain like I'm doing now. So maybe it'll make it into some weird list that I do later on down the road. But for now, it's just kind of sitting on the back burner as an idea of, like, where can I place this idea to talk about. And maybe I've thought about maybe doing like a gaming trends that I don't like, and a couple of these things would be on there, but it's just one that I've never gotten around to. Okay, well, that's the list of things. If you liked any of them, let me know. Maybe I'll get into some of them if the interest is really there for me to do these. I have a bunch of ideas that I just have not gotten around to. This was just a few of them. So if you liked any of them or you got any other suggestions, I love taking suggestions from subscribers and other watchers, viewers, whoever you may be. Always let your voice be heard, and I'd like to hear from you. And, you know, thanks to the members here or here, wherever, that pay $2 a month, $5 a month to be part of the gang. I really appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye. Hey, kid. Heard you were looking for some sweet microtransactions. I got plenty right here. And it's all thanks to today's sponsor. Oh, I gotta go. Microtransactions. Love them or hate them, they've become a cornerstone of the gaming industry. From buying skins in free-to-play games to shelling out for loot boxes and AAA titles, microtransactions have sparked heated debates among gamers and industry experts alike. Are they a necessary evil in modern gaming, or are they outright ruining the experience? In today's video, we're going to look into the world of microtransactions, how they came to dominate the industry, their impact on players and developers, and whether there's any way to make peace with them. Let me know down below your thoughts on microtransactions, and let's get into the video. Microtransactions didn't appear overnight. They began as small downloadable content packs, DLC, that allowed players to expand their favorite games. Titles like Oblivion and The Sims offered optional extras, from new quests to cosmetic items. Back then, They were seen as a way to enhance a game, not detract from it. Things shifted with the rise of mobile gaming and free-to-play models in the late 2000s. Games like Farmville and Candy Crush introduced players to the concept of paying small amounts to unlock advantages or progress faster. These purchases were designed to be painless, just $1 or $2 here and there, but the profitability was undeniable. Game developers began to see microtransactions as a way to generate revenue long after a game's initial release. Fast forward to today, and microtransactions have evolved into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Battle passes, skins, emotes, and randomized loot boxes are now common, not just in free-to-play games, but even in full-price AAA titles. What began as optional extras has become, for some players, an integral and sometimes frustrating part of the gaming experience. I remember when microtransactions first started, it was with the DLC Horse and Oblivion, and mobile games like Farmville on Facebook. I don't know if you remember Farmville, but man, that game ran everybody's life. And then they started putting in little microtransactions. It's like, at first it was, hey, can you watch my farm while I'm gone on vacation? I can't check Facebook, to, hey, you got a couple of bucks? I need to buy some more plants for my Farmville. Let's start with the good. Microtransactions can provide developers with a steady stream of income to maintain and expand their games. Free-to-play games like Fortnite and Apex Legends wouldn't exist in their current form without them. Regular updates, new content, and community events are funded by microtransaction revenue. In theory, these purchases are entirely optional. Paying players subsidize the experience for everyone else. But then there's the bad and the ugly. The term pay-to-win has become a lightning rod for controversy. Games like Star Wars Battlefront 2 infamously included mechanics where players could pay for competitive advantages, creating an uneven playing field and sparking massive backlash. Even in games where microtransactions are cosmetic only, the aggressive marketing tactics can feel predatory, especially for younger players. Randomized loot boxes, in particular, have been compared to gambling, leading some governments to regulate or ban them entirely. And let's not forget how microtransactions impact game design. Many gamers argue that the emphasis on monetization has shifted the focus away from creating great gameplay experiences. Instead of building games that are rewarding and complete, developers are accused of creating grindy mechanics that nudge players towards spending money to save time. And I'm not completely opposed to microtransactions, but there's the good and the bad. So you do have some that are just fun, cosmetic things, like that don't really affect the gameplay. I mean, you can think about games like Fortnite, where it's just skins. It doesn't really change how you play the game or whether you're good at it or not, but it does just kind of change the way you look. But then you have pay-to-win features like we talked about with Star Wars Battlefront 2, where it literally gives you the competitive advantage when you spend money. And I think that's where microtransactions have gone wrong, in the fact that they affect the ability to play the game, and you get benefits. You literally can be better at the game because you spent money on it, which I think is just unfair. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you should be able to just play a game and enjoy it and get better at it by increasing your skill and play time, rather than just going, I'm going to spend $20 and immediately be better than everybody else. Despite the backlash, microtransactions are here to stay. Why? Well, the simple answer is money. Microtransactions generate billions of dollars annually, far surpassing revenue from traditional game sales alone. For developers, they're not just lucrative, they're a lifeline. Free-to-play games like Genshin Impact thrive on microtransactions, while even AAA publishers like EA and Activision Blizzard incorporate them into their financial strategies. The ability to generate recurring revenue helps studios manage the soaring costs of game development, especially for high-budget titles that take years to create. Without microtransactions, some games might not even get greenlit in the first place. For players, the appeal is also undeniable. Customizing your avatar, speeding up progress, or unlocking rare items can enhance the gaming experience. As long as the demand exists, developers will continue to find new ways to monetize their games. So microtransactions are probably not going anywhere, ever. There's too much money in them. And major companies, AAA studios, love money. I mean, you just look at games like GTA 5, where they've made bazillions of dollars off microtransactions, and I just don't think that when you give that kind of money to companies like that need money to run, I can't deny that, they're just going to keep doing it. I don't think microtransactions are going anywhere. Money, money, money talks. Not all microtransactions are created equal, and some games prove they can be done right. For instance, League of Legends offers a wealth of cosmetic skins, but they don't affect gameplay. Similarly, Path of Exile funds its free content update with optional purchases that don't disrupt the core experience. The key to a healthier relationship with microtransactions lies in transparency and balance. Developers need to ensure that purchases feel fair and optional, not manipulative or essential to enjoying the game. Players too have a role by voting with their wallets, rewarding games with fair systems and avoiding those that exploit their audience. As the industry evolves, there's potential for a middle ground, where microtransactions support developers without alienating players. But finding that balance will require the developers, publishers, and gamers to work together. So can anything be done about microtransactions? Maybe. I don't really know. I feel like you could, as long as you move away from the pay-to-win way of doing it, I feel like it can work. But I don't know. Just microtransactions I just don't like them. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going anywhere. It's just going to stick around. So love them or hate them, really, it's like they always say, if you don't like them, make the point with your wallet. Don't spend money on these games. Granted, I think about that idea and I'm just like, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, there are people that are spending tons of money on microtransactions to where it doesn't really matter if you do or not. But I guess vote with your wallet. Don't spend money on microtransactions. I've been that way for a long time with games like Hearthstone. I haven't given them real money in at least a decade. But then there are games like Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle where I have given them money. And I'll probably give them more. Sorry, everybody. So are microtransactions ruining gaming, or are they just a natural evolution of the industry? The answer isn't black and white. While they're undeniably brought challenges and controversies, they've also opened doors to innovative business models and new game experiences. What do you think? Are microtransactions a necessary evil, or do they cross the line too often? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep talking about it down there. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Bye-bye. Gaming is an industry defined by its creativity and willingness to experiment. Sometimes those experiments lead to iconic innovations, but other times they lead to some truly bizarre ideas. Today we're looking into the weirdest gaming accessories of all time, from gloves that promise motion control magic to chainsaw-shaped controllers. We're looking at the peripherals that left players scratching their heads. Let me know down below if you owned any of these weird peripherals that I talk about, or any that I don't talk about. Let me know what your favorite ones are down below in the comments, and let's get into the video. First up, we have the Nintendo Power Glove, a peripheral that captured imaginations when it debuted in 1989. Marketed as the future of gaming, the Power Glove was one of the first attempts at integrating motion controls into mainstream consoles. Its futuristic design, complete with buttons and a numeric keypad on the forearm, felt like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. The Power Glove worked by detecting hand movements and translating them into game actions. To accomplish this, it used ultrasonic sensors and an elaborate calibration process. While the concept was groundbreaking, the execution fell short. The glove struggled with precision, often failing to register even basic gestures. This made more compatible games frustrating to play rather than immersive. Despite its flaws, the Power Glove became a cultural phenomenon. Its appearance in the 1989 movie The Wizard cemented its place in gaming history, even if the line,
"It's so bad,"
was unintentionally accurate. Today it's remembered as a quirky piece of gaming nostalgia and a symbol of Nintendo's willingness to push boundaries. While it didn't revolutionize gaming as intended, it paved the way for later innovations like the Wii and the Switch. So, the Power Glove, I feel like this is one that everybody knows about. It's just in the cultural zeitgeist in gaming, at least. Everybody in some capacity knows what the Power Glove is, whether it's through the movie The Wizard, or you remember seeing commercials for it as a kid, or you've seen videos about it on YouTube now. I think everybody knows about the Power Glove and how bad it was. That's like the one thing everybody knows. It's just how well it did. It didn't work. I say how well. It didn't work well. But if you watch videos now, I feel like technology has advanced. If you watch Power Glove videos that are over the last few years, they work pretty well, I think, because people have tinkered with them. But back in the day, they did not work. They were terrible. Even the movie made it sound great. Like, oh, look how awesome this thing is. It works so well. But inevitably, it was a hunk of junk. Like most of these that are on the list are. They just never really worked well. The intent was there. The, intention to make a great product and innovate gaming in some way. But inevitably, they usually fell flat. And the Power Glove was just one of the first to do so. Next, we have the Sega Activator, a motion-controlled accessory that was as ambitious as it was impractical. Released in 1993 for the Sega Genesis, the Activator was an octagonal ring that sat on the floor and used infrared beams to detect movements. Players would stand inside the ring and break the beams with their hands or feet to control games. It was marketed as a revolutionary way to play games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. In practice, the Activator was notoriously difficult to use. The infrared beams were overly sensitive to lighting conditions, making it hard to get consistent inputs. Performing complex combos in fighting games, a key selling point, was nearly impossible due to the device's lack of precision. Instead of feeling like a martial arts master, players often looked like they were flailing in frustration. Despite its shortcomings, the Activator deserves credit for its ambition. It was one of the first gaming peripherals to explore full-body motion control, an idea that wouldn't truly take off until the advent of the Wii and Kinect years later. Today, the Activator is remembered more as a curious oddity than a practical gaming tool, but it's a fascinating glimpse into Sega's innovative spirit during the 90s. The Sega Activator. I actually remember this one, and this is the only one on the list that I've actually ever seen in person and was able to use. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like a lot of people had that one kid in their life that basically just got everything they wanted, all the cool stuff that you wanted as a kid that your parents were like, why would we buy that for you? That kid's parents bought it for them. And looking back, and as an adult now, I'm glad that my parents didn't, because as you can tell by this list that we're going through, most of these are garbage. Sega Activator was one of those as well. My friend had one of these, I got to test it out, and it was just as bad as I just talked about. It barely worked. Half the time you're like flailing around like this and like nothing's really happening, or you're just standing there and it's going nuts. Because what you don't realize is that it's using infrared, so it's going off light. And when you have multiple like light sources in your room, like the light was on, there's light coming through the window, there's like light coming from another room. That Activator is just having an aneurysm, like trying to figure out which light to look at. And all you're really doing is blocking that light to do an input. So when you got light from different sources and you got to block it, it may go, well, you're blocking, or it's already being blocked. It's all just mumbo jumbo, really, at the end of the day. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, the Activator was garbage, and it was one of the ones that I actually got to try. So I thought it was really cool in the sense of what it was supposed to do. But when I got to actually use it, I was like, I'm glad that my parents didn't buy this for me, because I would have gotten bored with it in 5 minutes and just gone back to my Sega controller, because at least that actually worked. In 1998, Nintendo added a creative twist to handheld gaming with the Game Boy printer and camera. The camera allowed players to take grainy, low-resolution photos, which could then be edited with fun filters and effects. The printer used thermal paper to turn these photos into stickers, giving players a way to carry their creations in the real world. What made the Game Boy camera special wasn't just its novelty, but its creativity. The device came with quirky minigames, like a Space Invader-style shooter where the player's face became the enemy. It also encouraged experimentation, letting users create pixel art or fun captions for their photos. While the grayscale images were far from high quality, they had a certain charm that made the accessory beloved. The Game Boy printer and camera were surprisingly popular, even spawning a Guinness World Record for the smallest digital camera. Though primitive by today's standards, they offered a glimpse into the interaction of gaming and personal creativity. They remain a nostalgic relic of a time when gaming accessories were about more than just gameplay. They were about self-expression. The Game Boy camera, I do remember wanting one of these. There's not really a whole lot to say about it. It was a camera, and it made fun little mini games, but at the end of the day, it was printing out the worst looking pictures ever, because that was technology at the time. Like, they look so bad. It's like when you go back and look at a 240p video, and you're like, God, this looks like crap. That's what that looks like now. You're like, but at the time, it was so cool. It's like, oh my God, I have a camera on my Game Boy. And as a kid, you didn't have your own standalone camera usually. I mean, cell phones with cameras were far, far away during this time. And just to think that, like, oh, I can take pictures with this thing. I'm a kid. I can take pictures, even though they're grainy and black and white and they just kind of look like garbage. At the time, it was very cool. So I want to run really bad. Again, I think this list should just be called Things That I Wanted That My Parents Didn't Get Me. When Resident Evil 4 launched in 2005, it brought one of the most unusual gaming accessories ever created, the chainsaw controller. This grotesque peripheral was designed to look like a blood-stained chainsaw, complete with gory details like fake blood splatter and scratches. It was a perfect match for the game's intense, horror-filled atmosphere. The chainsaw controller wasn't just a prop, it was fully functional, though far from ergonomic. The controls were awkwardly placed on the handle, making precise gameplay a challenge. However, for fans of the franchise, that was part of the appeal. Owning the chainsaw controller wasn't about practicality, it was about showcasing your love for Resident Evil. Over the years, the chainsaw controller has become a sought-after collector's item. Its combination of grotesque design and practicality makes it a standout example of how gaming accessories can be as much about art and fandom as they are about functionality. The Resident Evil 4 controller, I never wanted this one. This is like the one on the list that I didn't want, mainly because I was a little bit older at the time and I was like, understood that this was a gimmick that just made no sense. Like, look at this controller. Why would anyone want to play with that? But obviously people did want it for collector's purposes or because they thought it was cool to play with. But at the end of the day, it is a terrible controller that is just not built to actually play with. And people, still wanted it. They still want it today. And I'm not one of those people. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. But, to some, it's like, oh, cool, a unique controller to play with. Not for me, maybe for others, but something nonetheless. And finally, not something from the 90s that sucked just because it was technology way ahead of its time. Just, a silly little chainsaw controller. Konami LaserScope, released in 1990 for the NES, was a headset designed to take commands to the next level. Equipped with a microphone and a red visor, the LaserScope allowed players to control games by yelling commands like fire to shoot in titles such as Duck Hunt. Unfortunately, the LaserScope's execution was far from flawless. The voice recognition system was rudimentary, often mistaking background noise or even random sounds for commands. This led to chaotic gameplay sessions where players would unintentionally shoot at nothing or fail to shoot when it mattered most. The headset itself was bulky and uncomfortable, adding to the frustration. Despite its flaws, the LaserScope holds a unique place in gaming history. It was a bold attempt to rethink how players interacted with their games, and its design, complete with a sci-fi style targeting reticle, made it unforgettable. While it didn't catch on, it hinted at the potential of voice controls, a concept that has become increasingly relevant in modern gaming. The Konami LaserScope, I remember this one too, probably still a little ahead of my time. I was very young when this thing came out, so of course I was a child, I'm like, I want this, only to realize later on in life that it was a huge piece of junk that, like the power glove or the activator, just didn't work. The idea was there, but it's one of those gimmicks that was just kind of thrown across and like, hey, what if you use your voice to play the game, except that we don't think about outside light sources or outside noise or the fact that the mic probably sucks or that, just all these things. That was the trend, is like, let's make some new gimmicky controller or whatever to play these games, but we haven't even figured out how to actually make them work well. Like, do you think when they were developing these things that they were in the room like playing with it and they're like, it works fine, I guess. Like, sure, ship it out. That's probably how it had to be, right? They're like, it doesn't work half the time. It barely works. It doesn't even recognize your voice, but it occasionally it will, so we can sell it that way. That's got to be what it was. Anyways, the Konami LaserScope, I wanted one, never got one, only to learn later on in life that they sucked, just like all the other stuff we talked about. So, for video game accessories, I feel like the Konami LaserScope just kind of is a nice way to top it off and just go, all of these accessories sucked. So those were some of the weird gaming accessories that have come out over time. These quirky peripherals remind us that gaming is about more than just playing. It's about experimenting, innovating, and sometimes failing spectacularly. What's the strangest accessory you've ever seen or used? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, welcome back to another green screen video. Today we're doing something a little different in the fact that this started as one idea for a video and turned into something else. So if you saw the community post or you're in the Discord, which if you're not, you can join in the description down below, we were talking about underrated games, and as the conversation went on, started to realize like these aren't really underrated, more so games that people enjoy that aren't really that well known. And the conversation just got to the point where I was like, I think underrated is just subjective. There's no objectively underrated game. Just games that people enjoy that maybe not as many people have heard of. So today we're talking about obscure video game gems and games that we enjoy that maybe not so many people know about. So only one item on this list is mine, and the rest come from the community, whether that's through the YouTube community or on the Discord. So enjoy the fact that this list is not just me this time. It's the community itself creating this list. So I hope you enjoy, and let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so first up is a choice by my buddy Vintage over in the Discord, and also viewer of the channel. Love you, buddy. His choice was Darksiders for Obscure Video Game Gem. Now, this is kind of where the conversation started to turn to what makes an underrated game, because for his choice, he's like, I don't think it's underrated. It's made by a major studio, and I think a lot of people enjoy it. They've even made multiple Darksiders games. I think it's more so that this is just an obscure gem that he likes. So let's just go ahead, and I'm going to read what he had to say about this game. He says, I remember it opening and basically being pissed for war and being interested in the story right from the outset. Gameplay and progression is often compared to Zelda games with puzzlers and familiar power progression. Voice acting is memorable and recognizable. Your little NPC companion is Mark Hamill, basically doing the Joker. The finale is satisfying with a feeling of, oh, it's on now. Where's the next game? Yeah, watching a little bit of gameplay of this game, I'm like, yeah, I can get that. The combat looks cool. It just looks fun and, fast paced and just kind of, it's also very violent and cool, which, in my last video last week, I was kind of like, some games are too violent, but this, I think, does it right. And it's just so cool to see. It also kind of reminded me of Shadow of Mordor. It doesn't seem like it has the revenge system that Shadow of Mordor had, but I think that'd be cool. Maybe they implemented that in later ones. I don't know. But it still looks like a very cool game, and one that I'm definitely going to have to go back and try in some way, because it's just simple, brutal, attacking fun, and I think that's really cool. So shout out Vintage for this choice. Let's get on to the next one. All right, this next one is from my mod in my live stream chat, which if you haven't caught the live streams, they've been really fun lately. A lot of people comping in, and I really enjoy that. Styler here says, the Cactus Cowboy series, which if you don't know what that is, it is a VR series of cactus-based games. I know that sounds crazy, but he wrote a damn novel about this game and what he likes, especially Cactus Cowboys, Plants at Wars, and Desert Warfare. But it's free VR games. They're FPS shooters, and it's jam-packed with content, and the graphics may not be AAA, but it has a genuine charm to it. So I went and looked this up because I don't have VR. I don't expect to buy VR anytime soon. Just not really in my wheelhouse. But I like some of the things that they're doing with it, and this game is an example of that, because I feel like with VR, sometimes the desire to get to, like, realistic, like, you gotta feel like you're really there, is just sometimes ruins what VR can be. And I think this Cactus series actually takes VR and makes it fun in the fact that it's just a silly first-person shooter where you're a cactus and your teammates are cactuses and you're killing. They look like carrots. I don't know what they are, but you're like in a World War II type scenario, which I think is just hysterical. And I'm watching some of the content and like watching some of the jokes. There's like this old guy that's retelling his war stories. He's also a cactus. I think it's very humorous, and I think that's the direction that VR should be going right now, in the sense that the technology is limited. And I think that when you try to hit realism, it doesn't really work that well. But when you lean the other direction, just going cartoony, silly fun, I think VR can work really well. I think this could also be a non-VR game, and maybe it is. But I think overall, just I can understand why this is very obscure. Most people don't have VR, and if they do have VR, they're picking up, like, Be Calm and No One Explodes or stuff like that, like the very famous ones, or Beat Saber. But maybe they should look at Cactus Cowboy, because I think it looks like it'd be a lot of fun. So go check that. If you have VR, go check that one out. All right, so we're going to talk about my obscure video game that I really enjoy. And I don't know if it's really obscure, but it didn't do as well over in the States as it did over in Japan, where it came from. And that is the Mystical Ninja series, or the Goemon series, whatever you'd like to know it by. But there are two games in that franchise that I truly, truly enjoy, and as a kid, really liked the games. The first one is The Legend of the Mystical Ninja on Super Nintendo. I have very fond memories of this game because my dad and I played it. It was one of the first games I got to play co-op with my dad after many years of just watching him play video games. It was just a super stylish Super Nintendo game. I just really enjoyed it, and it was fun to play with my dad. Later on, when the N64 came out, I remember going to Blockbuster to rent a video game, and I found Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, which was just another game from the franchise, but in 3D, which I thought was really cool. Gave me nostalgia for playing the old game with my dad, and I was like, I've got to pick it up. And I actually went back and renewed my rental of this game because I was enjoying it so much. Now that I played it recently, I played it on the stream, and I was kind of like, okay, it doesn't really hold up that well, but I still have fond memories of this game, and I think it's really fun and worth playing. And I actually have a copy of the game. I actually own a copy of the game for my N64, which is sitting over there collecting dust. But I love this game so much, and I love this franchise. So if you have time, even if you just want to use an emulator, I didn't say that, but that's true. Play the old Super Nintendo version for a nice, fun 2D side-scroller, or play the N64 version. It's a nice, fun 3D romp. All right, this next one comes from Nix over in the Discord, and huge supporter on YouTube. Really appreciate this guy. His is the whole Rusty Lake franchise. He wrote another wall of text about it, just like Styler did about his game. But I know about this series and this franchise because I see these games pop up all the time, and they're not one that I've really ever taken the time to play, because when I look at them, I'm like, I don't think this would really work for my channel. But they're great little point and click escape room type games. They have a great style. I think they like hand drawn, kind of like, looks like it's just drawn on paper style to these type of games. And I'm sure you've seen games like this before, whether it's these or ones very similar to it. And all it is about getting from one spot to the next. So in the video behind me, you're in a train station and you're trying to, progress and figure out the puzzle, and it's just super interesting. And maybe I'll play one of these one day, because they do look like I was recording the footage for this video, and I was like, it looks like fun. I think I could play it. Maybe it'd be a stream game. But if you're a fan of point and clicks or puzzle games, I don't think you can go wrong with this franchise. They do really good, and you can go get these games. They're relatively cheap. They're relatively inexpensive. So definitely, if you're into puzzle games, escape rooms, any of that stuff, go check them out. Rusty Lake. All you gotta do is Google that, and you'll find everything. Okay. Final entry on this list comes from member of the channel and great Twitch streamer Omega, and he put in Enchanted Arms, which, if you don't know, is an RPG game created by FromSoft, believe it or not, but not the Dark Souls, Elden Ring type game that you're expecting. This is a pretty general JRPG with tactical combat, kind of like you're in this grid-based system and you move around to attack certain enemies. I think it's really cool. You can see his gameplay going on behind me, and you can see him in the corner there. Look at that guy. Look at him. He had to say, the dialogue is poorly voice acted, which I agreed when I was watching him play it on stream. The dialogue is terrible. And the game holds your hand way too much, but the story is complex. Like, you start with your best friends and end up being pushed into fighting devil golems capable of destroying entire nations in minutes. And if that doesn't describe the plot of a JRPG, I don't know what does. He says there's even models you can find from Demon's Souls, the original release, and that game hadn't even been featured in Japan yet, which I think is pretty cool. To think that it's a FromSoft game is kind of wild. Watching it, you're just like, man, the shift in FromSoft games from what they used to be, because this game came out in 2006, to where we are now 18 years later with Elden Ring and all this stuff. It's just wild to see the change. I really enjoyed watching him play this. You can watch him stream it on his Twitch channel, which I will link down below, or go to his YouTube, which you can find as well, where he's uploading very long playthroughs from his stream onto YouTube, which I think is, if you're looking to binge something and you like video game binges, this is the one to watch, so go check that out as well. Thank you very much for watching this video. I always love doing these green screen videos. Thank you to the members of the community that shared their opinions and their games for this list. I really appreciate you. Thanks for joining in. And if you want to be part of the next video where I do this kind of thing, feel free to subscribe, join the Discord, whatever you'd like to do to communicate and say what's up. Now, let me know if you have an obscure game gem down below for me, because I'd like to check out more than just what I listed today, so let me know down below, okay? Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. I love you. Subscribe. Bye-bye. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another green screen video. It is at this point that most people click off, so if you're still here, thank you. Today we're talking about banned video games. Games that got in so much trouble that they got banned, mostly in certain countries, and just had to be taken off the shelves. So let's talk about some of those today. And if you have a banned video game that you remember getting banned, or one that you enjoyed, let me know down below. I promise I won't call the cops on you. Alright, so we're going to start off with a game franchise that I don't think anybody's surprised that one of their games got in trouble, and that's Grand Theft Auto. San Andreas, to be specific.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Now you may be wondering, what about GTA San Andreas got it in trouble? Was it the violence, the dialogue, the whatever? No, it wasn't any of that. What it turned out it was something that was not actually in the official release of the game. Modders found code within the game that, when put in a certain way, allowed the main character CJ, to do the deed with a frisky lady, and it was shown in the video game, and that got the game banned. In certain countries, it was taken off shows, given an adult-only rating, but it still sold crazy well, even without all this. It still sold almost 30 million copies, and it's a game that I remember playing a lot. Like, I remember it was around college when that game came out, which shows you how old I am, but I remember us playing it a lot in college, and just how wild and ridiculous that game was. But when that news came out about the hot coffee mod, which is what it was called the hot coffee mod, it was all over the place. Everybody was talking about it and how much trouble Rockstar got into, even though they didn't really do anything. I think it was maybe like they had thought about maybe putting it in the game, and then they were like, yeah, this probably isn't a good idea. So they just kind of left the code in there, but didn't do anything with it, only for other people to find it. I feel like nowadays, that's something that just like within an instant someone would find. People these days are just like, I got to find everything out about this game and just dig into everything, including the code. So I feel like nowadays, this would have come out before the game maybe even hit shelves, but it's still just one of probably the most well-known things that got a game banned. So let's move on to the next one. What could it be?
This product is not yet rated.
So we got to keep going with Rockstar on this list with Manhunt 2. Now, this one wasn't about doing the deed with the lady of the night. This one was about doing the deed to dudes in the night by being completely and utterly violent. And I remember hearing about this game, and I'm just showing my age talking about these. I remember it was on X-Play. If you remember X-Play back in the day on G4 or Tech TV, whatever it was at the time, and how violent this game was. I mean, you're essentially just going around, you're like getting people with like wires and like just violently cutting them up and like shoving them in barrels and stuff. It's just wild. That this game even existed, and it was an adult-only game on release. Unlike Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, that had to be turned into adult-only. This was adult-only on release, at least in the U.S. But it was banned in places like the UK and Ireland for being so hyper-violent. You know, a lot of European countries don't do violence like that. So to them, it was just like, this is just too much. And it was a bit a little bit overdoing it when it comes to violence, but it was still very gritty and just intense. And I remember playing it later on in life and being like, God, man, this is just too violent. And that, you know, I can deal with violence, but like there are times, especially in video games, I remember Gears of War was one of those where I'm just like, it's kind of like start to feel ill. You're like, this violence is just so exaggerated and so hyper violent that I just can't stand it. And Manhunt 2 was kind of the same way, though it didn't look nearly as realistic. It was, you know, a different time, but it was just kind of like, how is this enjoyable? Just being so violent. But I guess some people like that. The UK and Ireland did not. Next up is Postal 2. I remember playing Postal 2 when it first came out, and it probably shouldn't have been because I was, I don't know if I was young enough. It doesn't matter. But Postal 2 was one of those that got banned so much that they even started using it as like marketing, as an advertisement for the game, going like, look at all these countries that have banned our game. That's how you have to play it, because how can you miss out on something that's being banned so widespread? Looking back on it now, it's one of those like, remember that kid in school that was just like edgy just to be edgy? That was me at some point in time, but like, you know, those kids that were just like, I'm going to say the most messed up thing I can because it's funny, or I'm going to like, you know, I'm going to punt this cat or whatever. I don't know. I never knew somebody that did that, but like things like that where you're like, it's just stupid, like over the top just to be edgy. And I feel like that's the way Postal 2 is. But I do remember certain things like Gary Coleman like is in the game, and like it's just, the references are all over the place, the violence is all over the place, and I can understand why it got banned. But it is, the definition, I think, it's that edgy kid you went to school with that was like, I'm just going to say some wild crap just to say it. And you're just going like, okay, dude, cool. And he's like, frick you, dude. And you're like, wow, edgy. You know, that's what kind of how I remember this game. It's just over the top. It's one of the first games where you could just pee on stuff. You could take people's heads off with shovels, and all you're trying to do is get your to-do list done, get milk, get your paycheck, check cash, all that kind of stuff. It is silly in that way, but at the end of the day, it's just absurdity for the sake of absurdity, which is just kind of dumb. But people really seem to enjoy it, and they made 2 or 3 more. I think I tried to play one of them recently for the channel. I was like, nah, it's only gotten worse. I can't make a list like this without talking about Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was that game that when you were a kid, either your parents let you play it and didn't care, or your parents were like, that's too violent and you can't play it. I was in the latter part of that. I was not allowed to play Mortal Kombat as a kid, And then at some point, my parents broke, and they were like, okay, you can play. I got Mortal Kombat 3 at Blockbuster. And I was so excited, and I started playing it. And then my very, very devout Christian neighbors, their son came over, and I was like, check out Mortal Kombat 3. Needless to say, I had to return it to Blockbuster the next day because I got in trouble for showing this child Mortal Kombat 3. They were not happy. The neighbors were not happy about that. But I remember that story so vividly. And to think that the game has just seen such success over the years, starting out the way it did. I mean, this game, I'm sure we all know, is part of the reason that the ESRB exists in the first place. Why you have T for teen or E for everyone or whatever, or in this case, AO for adults only. Mortal Kombat had just kind of it started all that with how violent and over the top it was. Countries like Germany and Japan actually censored the game because it was too violent. Now to think that it's, things have changed over the years, and I think now you look back at Mortal Kombat, you're like, that's not that bad. Like, you're sure they're ripping heads off and stuff, but there's way worse on the internet. I mean, just look at the Steam page of all the big boobied hentai games that exist and just think, Mortal Kombat is probably not that bad. Speaking of big titty hentai games, let's talk about the last game, and one that has been banned and rightfully banned, and if you own a copy of it, you should probably burn it because it involves underage girls, and that's the Guy game. Do not own a copy of this. If you have it, burn it, okay? I'm not even going to show footage of it. I'm just going to have puppies and cats and stuff in the background because I don't want that on my channel. The YouTube sphere is full of enough of this crap right now, so I'm just going to avoid it. But it was banned for very good reason. It's one of those games where you just kind of like, it's like Girls Gone Wild, the video game. But it turns out some of those girls were going a little too wild, a little too underage. So I think I even saw a Reddit post where someone posted like, I saw this in a local game store, and like, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to have it. Like, it's illegal for that very reason. So rightfully banned. Some of the other ones, all of the other games that I talked about, they're banned, but, within reason. Like, it's not too crazy. Like, sure, they might be violent, or they might show some sort of act between two polygon characters, but it's not literally illegal. That's why this one's the last one. So please, do yourself a favor. Never touch this game. Never look at this game. Forget I even mentioned it. I'm going to, like I said, puppies and cats. No video game footage, okay? So yeah, that's my last one. Yeah, I'm going to get out of here. Alrighty, thank you for watching. Those were some banned video games. I hope you enjoyed. I did. I really enjoy making these green screen videos. They're a lot of fun. I only do them every once in a while nowadays. I used to do them every week. If you'd like to start seeing them every week, let me know down below, because I do appreciate doing this kind of content that's not just playing video games with my camera off. So if you enjoy, let me know down below. If you want to talk about banned video games, we can talk about those down below. Whatever you want to do. I just love to say hi to everybody. I do my best to reply to every comment. And so let me know down below what you think, and I'll talk to you, okay? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Goodbye. Hello everybody, welcome back to another green screen video. I know it's been a little while. I was on vacation, and then I was also doing some other stuff that took up my time, but we're back to doing green screen videos, so I hope you're excited like I am. Today we're talking about pet peeves, and if you don't know what those are, it's little things, little annoyances that can get on your nerves, bother you a little bit, and in video games we have plenty of those too. So today I want to talk about some of my gaming pet peeves, and I think you may relate to these, and if you have some of your own, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, so let's go ahead and get started. A big one for me is escort missions. Escort missions are just the biggest pet peeve of mine because I just do not enjoy doing them. And it seems like something that's being integrated into like every game these days. But what bothers me more than escort missions are the ones where your walking speed and the NPC's walking speed are vastly different. There's nothing more annoying than that. It's like this. Like that, all while they're trying to tell you some sort of lore dump or explanation. It's some kind of exposition dump, because that's the way the game developers decided to explain what's going on to you, is have you follow a character and then listen to them spout on for a while. And that's why they walk so slow, is because they have a certain amount of things they need to get out of the way, and in order to do that, they have to walk very slow. There's that, and then there's also the NPC thing where they just kind of stand in one position, and you have to guard them while, they're trying to crank a wheel or like find their keys in their pocket. And all the while, skeletons are coming out of the ground, dragons are breathing fire, helicopters are just, the armies of hell have awakened, and you now have to guard this one person who's doing the most mundane task. I understand it's probably for like to load more of the game or like to just kind of pad time as something else is going on or just give you that epic combat experience in some way. But overall, it's just a big pet peeve of mine that that's some sort of gameplay mechanic that has found its way into just about every game that you play these days. Another pet peeve of mine is invisible walls. Invisible walls, they were a thing back in the day because of hardware and software limitations. It was like, well, we need to block off this path, but we can't add any more items to the screen because the game just can't handle that. So we'll just put an invisible barrier up that will block you from going down a pathway. Those still exist today, but the fact of the matter is that with the advancements in technology and gaming, you can easily add some barrels to block a path. You can add a guard to sit there and go like, hey, you can't go this way, or even just a little bit of text that stops you and says, hey, this is the wrong way to go, turn around, go back the other way. But instead, especially with like certain indie games, like one developer team games, where they don't know how to do that. So what they do is they just put an invisible barrier up. I'm like, well, you can't go this way. The amount of games that I've played recently, and I play a lot of games, some of them very bad. That's usually where they come up. But I'll just be walking down some way. I'll make it a good distance, and then all of a sudden I hit an invisible wall, and I can't go anywhere, so I have to turn around and walk all the way back to find out where I needed to go. Just put a little something. Put some, like I said, some barrels, some boxes, some debris, something to say, hey, you can't take this path yet, or you just can't take it at all. Or maybe just some guy that's like, you don't want to go down that way, there's death. Maybe even it would be funny to just put like a big creature that kills you instantly if you get up to it. Like, maybe I shouldn't go that way, that kind of thing. But instead, what you're met with a lot of times is just invisible walls that are obviously invisible. You can't see them, so you're just pushing against nothing as you determine that you can't go that way. It's just, it annoys me to no end. All right, this next one may be a little bit of a hot take. I don't know if it is, but for me, one of my biggest pet peeves is how often games implement crafting, durability to armor and weapons and all this stuff in an effort to make it more realistic. I can appreciate the thought process behind that and going, well, if you use a sword for too often, it's going to get dull, it might break. Same with your armor, you get hit enough times, it's going to get scratched up or break or whatever. I get that. But at the end of the day, I'm playing a video game, and I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want to have to repair my weapons and armor. I don't want to have to craft new ammunition or like new armor. Like, for whatever reason, crafting has just gotten its way into every little game. There's always some kind of crafting aspect where it's like, okay, you have to create this to get to here. Even if it's simple, like put these two things together, fine. But if it's like, well, you got to go find certain items, and then you find the right items, and then you can craft them into this, and then that allows you, it's too much. Or like, hey, you've been hit too many times, you need to replace your armor, you need to repair it, travel all the way back to the blacksmith in town to get it repaired. Like, for me, it's just not fun. I don't enjoy it, and it's just, it irks me to no end. It's just an aspect of games that I just wish was less used, I guess. I don't think it should go away completely, but it's a pet peeve of mine, and it's just something that kind of ruins the game experience. All right, this next one's from my homie Shifty and the fact that we play Civ 6, and when we do, the intro to that is so loud. It's just so loud it makes your eardrums bleed, and I feel like that's something that should be figured out by now. It annoys me so much when you start up a game and it's like you could have your volume like one tick away from completely muted and it still blows your head off. It's just like, because your ears are just blown out by this intro sound. I don't know if it's Firaxis or Sid Meier or who made that decision and who didn't test it and go, hey, this is so loud, it's killing people. We should probably turn it down a couple of notches. But instead, they just leave it on and it just blows your eardrums out. And it's just so obnoxious. And it's such an easy fix. It is something that does not need to exist. I should not have to crank my volume all the way down to start up a game because I'd turn it all the way down, let that play, and then I have to turn it all the way back up to be able to actually hear Civilization. All right, here's my final one, and that is menu UI. It has become so just absurd how complicated menu UI can be in the sense that, like, let's say I just want to quit the game. You can't just quit the game anymore. You know, back in the day, if you had an N64, it was just click the button to turn it off. You could save and then quit. Now, it is very much, okay, well, I want to quit. Okay, well, do you want to save first? Yes, I want to save. Okay, well, we actually just saved 5 seconds ago, but we're going to ask you again. Okay, I saved, now what? Okay, well, now do you want to quit? Yes. Quit to the main menu? No. Okay, well, you want to go back then? No, I want to just quit the game. Okay, well, do you want to save again? No, I just want to quit. Okay, do you quit to the main menu? Fine, sure, I'll quit to the main menu. Quit to main menu. Go all the way down to quit. Quit to desktop or quit? Yes, just let me quit the game. Let me quit the game. You trapping me in this hell cycle of like trying to just leave. I enjoy playing your game, and I will come back, I promise. All right, so that is my list of pet peeves in gaming. If you have any that are different, let me know down below, or if you agree with some of the list items that I put up, let me know too. I love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Thank you to members like Notch Johnson, Wafflecopter, and that developer guy for supporting. I love you. I appreciate you. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next green screen video. Subscribe. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to a fireside chat with Fake.
Alright, I didn't see you there. Welcome to a fireside chat with Fake. Today we're going to be talking about games that I just can't really stop playing. You know, those games that just, no matter how much you want to stop playing and find something new, you just can't. And they just stick with you forever. It seems like that, at least. You can play them for years and years and just never stop. So today we're talking about those games. So if there's a game that you think, man, I just can't stop playing it, I can't get rid of it, it's always going to take over my life in some way, let me know down below. I'd love to hear about what game you think has that effect on you. Also, if you could like and subscribe and do all those fun things too, that would be great. Thank you. So I'd like to get started with a game that I've been playing since 2014 and has been a part of my daily life pretty much ever since, and that is Hearthstone. I played many card games over my lifetime, from when I was a kid playing Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering. In 2014, Hearthstone was introduced to the public, and ever since then I've been playing it non-stop. So for about 10 years, every day I've been playing this game, at least an hour a day, if not more. This game has a grip on my life that I cannot explain. No matter what the changes are they make, no matter how much they frustrate me, no matter how annoying the game has become over the years, I can't stop playing it. What once was a very simple card game with very little RNG and pretty straightforward rules and combat has become an RNG-filled, what some may call a clown fiesta. Is just a part of my daily life. I played it before I recorded this video. I'll probably play more later today, as there's a new patch coming out, but I cannot stop playing Hearthstone. It's one of my favorite games, and even though I've looked for things to replace that, what that game has a grip on me, I just can't. I think it's just going to stay with me forever. Alright, one more Blizzard game, I promise. I will not talk about Blizzard the whole time, but I have to talk about World of Warcraft. Ever since its release in the early 2000s, I was getting ready to start college around the time that it came out. This game has had just a hold on me that no matter how much I tried to get away from it, I cannot. Now, currently I do not play the game. I haven't played in a couple of years now, because the cycle for this game is a new expansion comes out, I play it, I get bored with it, and I stop. A new expansion comes out, I play it because my friends want to play it, and I get hooked, play for a long time, too long, and then I get bored and I quit. So currently I'm not playing World of Warcraft, but I can't understate how much of a hold this game has had on me ever since 2004 or whenever it came out. It was part of the reason that I took 6 years to finish college, because my freshman year of college I was playing World of Warcraft instead of going to class. I'm sure I'm not the only one that had that happen to them. But there's just something about this game, something about MMORPGs, but World of Warcraft in particular, that I just can't stop playing it. I would love to, and I'm in that, like I said, I'm in that phase now where I'm like, I'm never going back to it. I'm never going to play it again. I try to live vicariously through other people playing it, so I don't reinstate my subscription and keep playing. And I think I'm pretty good. I think this one may be gone for good this time. I say that, but I'm just waiting for my group of friends to be like, hey, the new expansion's out, are we playing? And I'm going to go, yeah, I guess. And then I'll play for like a month, 2 months, and then I'll get bored. Okay, I'm done with Blizzard games, and we're moving on to something that is much more simple in formula and mechanic, but man, I cannot put this game down. It just exists in the background of my computer all the time, and that is Clicker Heroes. Clicker Heroes is just one of those simple, idle click games where you start off by clicking on monsters and upgrading and getting new troops and doing more damage, and then inevitably you get to the point where you don't even have to click anymore. You just let the game play itself. And that's where I'm at now. It just plays in the background as I do whatever, and then when I need to click on something, I will. But this game I can't stop playing it. Occasionally I'll uninstall it, but it inevitably comes back a few days later because that background nonsense going on is just too much fun. They've even made a second one, I believe, and I'm still on the first one because it's just, I downloaded it like 10 years ago, and I can't stop. I can't stop. It's so much fun to just watch these things click, click, click away. One of the first videos I was going to do on my channel was just a Clicker Heroes video where I just let it play with music in the background, and I realized that was a terrible idea. But to say that that was over a year ago, and I'm still playing this, I downloaded it so long ago that like I can't even remember. Like I said, I think it was 10 years ago, but it's a staple in my gaming life is Clicker Heroes. Next up, we have two mobile gacha games, one I play on my PS5 and one I've been playing on my phone forever. An honorable mention goes to Bleach Brave Souls, which I play on PS5. I only play here and there. I don't play a whole lot of it, but it's over the last couple of years, and I've played it since it launched, but I've just kind of taken breaks here and there, and now I'm back on the grind again. We'll see how long that lasts. But it is the mobile gacha game that I've not spent any money on. That's a feat for a lot of people. Completely free to play in that one, but I really enjoyed it. It kind of breaks up the monotony of certain gacha games that are very simplistic. This one's got actual movement and combat and stuff, which I think is very cool. But that's all to preface the game that I've been playing for the last 8 years or so, and that's Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. If you know anything about me, I am a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. I even made a video way back in the day where I recapped all of Dragon Ball Z from memory. And this game has just had a stranglehold on me ever since. I don't know if I'll ever be able to quit it. I think it may be the sunk cost fallacy where like I've put enough money into it where I feel like I can't quit. Like, okay, you put money into it, you can't quit. You have to keep playing. I've since stopped spending money on it and just play it for free. But it still just has a stranglehold on my life. Every day at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. depending on daylight savings time, I load that game up and I start playing. Whatever the new event may be, or even if there's nothing going on, that is just a staple in my life and a constant is that I'm playing this game. To the point where I have pretty much everything you can have for the most part. Even with it being a gambling system, I've played for so long that I have pretty much everything you can have in the game, which is insane to me. That's not as insane as some people. Like if you go to certain Dokkan Battle YouTubers, you'd find that they've spent a lot more money and a lot more time. But it has just been a constant over my life, and I don't ever see that stopping. It's just got a, like I said, a stranglehold on me. It's choking the life out of me, but I can't stop. Finally, here's a game that I will never quit. It's very simple. This was a stupid item to put on here, but I love it so much, and I wanted to finish with this one because it's been a part of my life forever, as long as I can remember, especially since I got a computer. And that's Solitaire. Very simple. It's a game you play by yourself. It's very easy to get into. It's just a card game. It's super simple. It's not Hearthstone. It's not full of RNG. It is just a simple card game. So Solitaire has been part of my life forever. I played it with physical cards, and then when I got a computer with Windows 95 on it, I started playing there. And even now, to this day, if I just don't know what to play and I'm just sitting here and I need to play a game, Solitaire will be that game that I play. Ridiculous list item, I know, but it is true. The longest stranglehold a game has had on me is a card game that people have been playing forever. I love Solitaire. Okay, so those are the games that I just cannot stop playing. If you have some games that you cannot stop playing, let me know down below. I love hearing about them. Again, just let me know. I hope you enjoyed this fireside chat with Fake. This was all just a ruse to let me sit down for one video instead of standing like I normally do. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more videos like this where I'm standing and talking about video games, you can watch them over here. And I will see you next Saturday with another green screen video. Thank you for watching. I love you. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye-bye. So, dude. Hello everyone, back to the green screen videos. Sorry for the delay. I was working on doing the membership promo and then also just didn't feel like showing my face last week. But we're back. Sorry for the delay. And if you're wondering why I'm saying delay that way, it's because today we're talking about video games that were delayed, but were certainly worth the wait once they were actually released. So let's talk about those right now. Unlike these delayed games, I'm not going to make you wait to talk about the big hitters. We're going to talk about one of those first and foremost, and that is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Most people may not know this, but the game was originally meant to be released in 2015 on the Wii U, but was delayed for 2 years and released on the Switch in 2017. I think it would be an understatement to say that this game was well worth the wait because it is considered one of the best modern Zelda games of all time, creating an open world and side quests and all these things that most other Zelda games did not have, at least not to this extent with this magnitude of amount of side quests and world to explore. And it just, I think it being delayed a little bit and coming out on the Switch just was a great idea. I don't know if it was their idea originally, but I think overall it made sense to release this on the Switch. Not to mention that the Switch is portable, you can move around with it much easier, and this game took up so many people's time and so much time that it was nice to be able to just port it around with the Switch. I know the Wii U was portable, but it was not nearly as portable as the Switch is. And I have friends that are still playing Breath of the Wild, still getting stuff done, still just goofing off with all the things that you can do. And it just, I think it was well worth the wait of 2 years. All right, this one's just a personal choice for me, and it is one that had one of the longest waits, at least for me. Some people may not care, but Kingdom Hearts 3, holy crap, 14 years. We had to wait 14 years from 2 to 3. Now, yes, I know we got all those like supplementary games in between, but nothing beat the mainline games of 1, 2, and 3. And 3 was not, it was good. It was very, very good. I think it was worth the wait, and the fact that we had advanced technologically so far in gaming from 2005 when 2 was released and 2019 when 3 was released, and just seeing how much had changed and how much had advanced that allowed this game to be beautiful, smooth, fun, just climactic. It's a great game, and I go back and play 3 occasionally. I still go back and 1, 2, and 3, and then a couple of the subsequent games are just so incredible. But Kingdom Hearts 3, to me at least, and I'm sure many, many others, 14 years was quite a bit of a wait and a delay, and we just kept thinking we were going to get it sooner than we did. But once it finally released, it brought back so much nostalgia, and it did everything right. It was just a beautiful, wonderful game that was well worth the wait. All right, one last Square Enix game, I promise, and then I'm going to move on to other publishers, producers. Final Fantasy 15. It had been so long, and the game had changed in so many different ways. It was supposed to be a Final Fantasy 13 spinoff of some sort. Final Fantasy 13 Versus, I think it was supposed to be called. But it just got delayed, and I had not really enjoyed Final Fantasy since 10. Like, I had played 12 and some of the 13 ones, which are not that... 13 is not that bad. But I had been waiting for 15, and once we finally got it, I know some people didn't like it, but oh my god, did I love it. I put probably 100 hours into that game, did everything you could do, which is rare for me. I'm not usually a completionist, but with Final Fantasy 15, and this may have said something about what I had going on in my life, but I had plenty of time to just do as much as I could in that game. Now, there are some complaints, like, with all that time of development and delay, why did you have to watch a movie before playing the game to understand what was going on? Still love the movie. Still love the game. It's incredible. Let's move on from Square Enix, okay? Thank you. All right, let's talk about a spooky game and a very well-known one, and that is Resident Evil 4. It had multiple versions that were scrapped before we got the final version that was released in 2004 on the GameCube, and boy, what a game it was. It revolutionized gaming in a lot of ways. It created, and just, I think not created, but perfected the over-the-shoulder viewpoint of the game. And so many games since then have taken from Resident Evil 4 to learn how to do that over-the-shoulder combat, shooting, just gameplay mechanic that I think Resident Evil 4 just does so well. It is, I think it's a 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best games ever made. I know that's probably just a very not hot take and just is what it is, but I think it was so worth the wait, because imagine if we had gotten one of those scrapped versions that maybe would not have been as good, and we wouldn't have what we had today, which is Resident Evil 4 changing gaming in the way that it did. I don't know why it was on the GameCube. I'm sure there's reasons why. I didn't look it up, but I know that that's what it was released on because we had it on the GameCube, and I was like, this is weird. Nintendo's for kids, yet they're selling Resident Evil 4, and that was like a big deal back then, that they had kind of broadened into selling horror games like Resident Evil 4. But man, what a beautiful game. I love it. I know I just released a video called Resident Evil 5 is my favorite, but Resident Evil 4 is just one of the best games ever made, I think. All right, let's talk about a game that is very popular right now because of a television show that was just released, and that is Fallout. Did you know that Fallout 3 was actually delayed? Technically, Fallout wasn't even owned by Bethesda in the beginning. Fallout 1 and 2 were done by Interplay, and then Fallout 3, titled the Van Buren Project at the time, worked for about 5 years in development and then was canceled. Then Bethesda bought the rights, and now they have the Bethesda series and started with Fallout 3. You may not have known that. I didn't know that either until I did the research. But also, Bethesda kind of moved it in a different way than Fallout 1 and 2. If you look at Fallout 1 and 2 and then look at Fallout 3 and everything since then, it almost feels like a completely different game series in a way. Outside of like, the story and everything, the story changes, but I think it's just a complete tonal shift in gameplay and game mechanics, and just Bethesda kind of redid what Fallout was. And that started with Fallout 3, which I think is a great starter to what Fallout became. It's a TV show now, but had multiple iterations of games from Fallout 3, New Vegas, Fallout 4, 76, to now a television show. So I think Bethesda did well with it, for what it's worth with Bethesda. But I didn't know that the game had been canceled and worked on for so long and delayed and scrapped and then bought and redone, essentially. I think that's very cool. All right, for my last choice, I'm going back to the JRPG genre and talking about Persona 5. One of my favorite games of all time, what I consider a perfect game and one of the best RPGs of all time, I think. And that's just my opinion. I know you can think whatever, but I think it's one of the greatest RPGs of all time. And I did not know that it had been delayed for so long. I didn't buy the game until 2019 and get hooked and play it and fall in love with it. But it actually was supposed to be released in 2014, but wasn't actually released until 2016 in Japan and then 2017 in the US and other countries. I did not know that it had been delayed that long. I didn't know that there were such long gaps between the iterations of these games. I've gone back and played some of the others, but I did not realize that there was such a gap between all of these. I'm waiting on Persona 6, and to think that it's been 5 years since I've played the game, but even longer, 7 years since the game actually released in America and other countries. To think that who knows when we'll see Persona 6, and if it'll be as good as Persona 5 was. I'm sure it will be. I love the Persona series. Thank you for watching this green screen video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any games that fall into this category and you would like to let me know that you enjoyed them, let me know down below in the comments. I love to reply to people, have the conversation, because my list is not the definitive list. It's just a list of items that we picked. So I hope you enjoy. If you like the video, you can subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I appreciate you can even become a member for $2 a month. That's very cool. All kinds of perks with that. Thank you for watching. I love you. I'll see you in the next subscribe. Okay, subscribe. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Usually I talk about disappointing video games, things that didn't really work out. That was last week's video. But today I want to talk about a positive thing, and that's genre-defying video games. I've talked about this before in certain aspects, and I use the term genre-defying when describing certain games. But today I want to talk about those games that truly defined video game genres. So if you're excited about that and want to see more, like and subscribe, ring the bell, whatever, just do that stuff for me. Thank you. We're going to get the obvious out of the way with this one, and that is basically anything made by Nintendo in the 80s and early 90s. They were defining video game genres because they had not really been defined yet. You had games like Mario, of course, defining the platforming genre, and still to this day shifts it in a way that just defines platformers. And Mario just, as a game as a whole, just completely shifted what we understood video games to be. They had before then been very simple. You had things like Pong, or even certain platformers like Pitfall, or the terrible E.T. game we talked about last week. But Mario came across and just was like, hey, here's how you do it right. Here's how you run from one side of the screen to the other. You jump, you kill things, you shoot fireballs. Like, it was just all these things that were just like, this is what video games are supposed to be like. And since then, that formula has just been used and expanded on and reinvented in a way that can only be attributed to the original Mario. Games like Legend of Zelda that define the genre of crawling through dungeons, having weapon upgrades, like all these different things, unique enemies, that made Legend of Zelda kind of define that genre of games. And even went on to, when we got into like for the third dimension with the N64, kind of reinvented that kind of gameplay. And just, Zelda's always kind of been on the forefront. Maybe not so much today, but they do always change it up. It's like the most recent ones, they added the open world, which really kind of redefined the Zelda games, not the genre itself. But you can't look back and go, Zelda didn't define the genre, because it did at that time. Again, I bring these games up at the beginning because there wasn't really a genre to define yet, so that's why they kind of are the creators of these genres, because they were really the first ones to do it in a way. One last Nintendo game, and this is solely because I remember playing it on the Nintendo first and then the Sega Genesis, and that's Street Fighter II, completely shifting fighting games. Now, they had been there before. The original Street Fighter was a fighting game, but creating what would lead to what we know as fighting games in this day and age with Street Fighter 2 and just how seamless the combat between two characters felt. It didn't feel jagged, it didn't feel rough, it just felt smooth, it felt good, and it just kind of created what we now know as 2D fighters, which, in my opinion, if you're going to play a fighting game, it has to be 2D, like it has to be just two people standing on one side of the screen and then combating. I understand arena fighters, I like those too in a way, but I think Street Fighter 2 just defined the fighting game genre. I mean, just cutting Hadoukens and Shoryukens and sonic booms and tiger uppercuts and all that stuff that just created just a feeling of enjoyment from fighting games that went on to just span. I mean, there's so many fighting games. I'm not even going to get started listing them, but there's so many, and I think a lot of them will attribute Street Fighter 2 as being that game that just kind of started it all and got fighting games to where they are today. It wouldn't be a fake gaming video if I didn't talk about Final Fantasy in some way. And my first Final Fantasy game, my favorite one, and the one that I think defined the RPG genre in this way, is Final Fantasy VII. Now, there have been plenty of Final Fantasy games that had open worlds, maps to run across, and things like that, but they were all segmented in a way. Final Fantasy VII felt like the first 3D RPG with just an open, expansive world that led to where we are today. It's like you can't play a regular JRPG without there being some sort of open world aspect to it. I think a lot of people look back at Final Fantasy VII and the subsequent ones after that just make you say, if it's a JRPG and we need a world, it has to be expansive. Now, I know there's some that maybe don't agree with that, but I think that Final Fantasy VII was a genre defier in what JRPGs should be when being built. They should be fantastical, they should be large, they should be expansive, they should be beautiful to look at, and, I think that's the way JRPGs are these days. And I just finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and they went back to that. I know that the remake was a little linear, but with Rebirth, they went back, and it felt truly like I was playing Final Fantasy VII again with just a big, expansive world full of stupid side quests. Let's talk about another game that I've spent way too much time in. I haven't played in a few years, but that is World of Warcraft. Now, our online RPGs existed before World of Warcraft, but World of Warcraft was the one to just define what an MMORPG was. It was the first one where people were like, this is it. This is a massively multiplayer online RPG, and it has been that way ever since. They dip, they rise, count goes down of players, it goes up, it fluctuates. But overall, World of Warcraft has been the most consistent MMO since it came out in 2004 or 2005, and I don't think it's ever really going to go away. People have their complaints, but I think it's understood that World of Warcraft was just a genre defier. It changed the way that MMORPGs were built, planned, created, and just everybody. I think World of Warcraft is like that blueprint for like how an MMORPG should be made. I play WoW so much over the years, but I can't get back into it anymore. I refuse to. If you're like me, as great as that game is, you get to the end, you just start running out of stuff to do. I think that's something they never figured out, and I think most RPGs never figured out, is like, once you get to the end, what do you do? You're out of stuff to do. Portal. Portal, it's one of those wonderful puzzle games that I think no game has ever really gotten close to, but everyone tries to copy in some way. Portal and Portal 2 especially, I really love Portal 2. Just define the genre of like platforming, puzzle-based games. Using the portals to get to certain places, to solve certain puzzles, was just something that had never been done before in that way, with that kind of physics-based stuff that only, the Half-Life engine and stuff was able to do. And I think nowadays, if you look at some of the videos on my channel, you'll see how many rip-offs of Portal there are in some way. Now, they may not use the Portal mechanics, but they use those ideas that Portal was built on to make their game and say like, oh, well, we want it physics-based, or we want it to, you have to use certain logic to get through here. And like, it's all coming from what Portal kind of got us thinking. Portal's a thinking game in a way. And I think that's what a lot of people who make games reminiscent of Portal go, I want to think about Portal and take what makes that game good and use it to make my game good as well. I don't think anything will ever hit the way Portal or Portal 2 hits, but people try to get close. And of course, without Portal, the genre would probably not be what it is today. Two more games to talk about. The first one is PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, created, or at least defined, the genre of battle royales. The 1 in 100, and you got to make it to number one. You got to be the last one to survive in a big arena. They get smaller and smaller. PUBG. I never played PUBG. I've never played a game of PUBG in my life, but I did watch a lot of people play it, so I can understand why it's so great. It's just not for me. But you can't deny that it defined the genre. If you go, what's the first Battle Royale you played? People over a certain age, over like 14, will probably say PUBG or something reminiscent of that. PUBG was just a hit when it came out. It was massive, made plenty of streamers famous, professional esports players famous, and it goes down as the genre defier of battle royales. And to follow up on that, I can't go without talking about Fortnite. It is a battle royale, much like PUBG, but they twisted it in a way that kind of made it its own thing, which is adding the construction element, which I know now they have this non-build mode, and that's what most people play, I think. But it defined the genre of battle royales with a twist, I think. Saying like it, so you could say it was kind of, inspired by PUBG in a way, or many of those other battle royales, but it shifted the genre in a way that made it unique and defined a certain genre of gaming where it's like, it's not just about shooting enemy players, it's about construction and getting vantage points and like being smart about what you do, which made it a little more complicated. I know it's kind of been dumbed down and now it's about doing emotes and buying skins or whatever, but when it first came out, it was a genre defier. So that's just a few games I think define certain genres in video games. I know there are plenty more, or you may think the ones that I chose were not the ones that defined a genre, and that's cool. If you have an opinion on this, let me know down below. I'd love to talk to you about it, see what games you think define genres. You could have picked something else that defined a specific genre. Maybe you played an MMORPG that you think is a little bit better than WoW, or you played an RPG that's not Final Fantasy VII, or you didn't grow up playing Mario and Zelda when the NES was out like us old farts. Let me know down below. I'd love to talk to you about it. But anyways, thank you for watching. This has been the green screen video of the week. I will see you next week with another one. If you have any ideas, I love taking feedback from the community. So if you have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'm sure most people have stopped watching by now. But thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Hey everybody. I think we've all at some point in our lives had a promise made to us where we get our expectations high and we're ready for that promise to be kept, and then once it's received, we're disappointed. And there's no case bigger than in video games where we're promised all these incredible, amazing things that we're going to get to play and experience only to be let down when they actually arrive. So today what we're going to talk about is some of those games and when they released, the disappointment that came with them, and some of them that actually affected the studios that released them. So sit back and enjoy, and I promise if you like and subscribe and do all that stuff, I'll actually keep making fun stuff like this. I promise. Alright, so the first game we're going to talk about, I think this is one that everybody may know about, but according to my analytics, most of us were not alive when this happened. But we're going to talk about E.T. the Extraterrestrial. A very old game, came out on the Atari, but was the first example of something coming out and being so disappointing that in this case, it almost ruined gaming as a whole. That's right, this game almost crashed the video game market with how bad it was. Upon release, people were excited. The movie E.T. was a huge hit. And everybody thought, oh, an E.T. video game has got to be great, right? Well, it was disappointing. I don't know if you've ever played this game. I played it many, many years ago just to see if it was as bad as people said it was, and oh my God, was it. It is garbage. It is hot garbage, and there's no wonder that it just kind of ruined everything. It brought video games to the brink of almost not existing. Like, we might not be playing video games today if this had happened a little bit stronger than it did. This game was so bad, and they made so many copies because they thought that they were going to sell so many of them, that it was so bad that they ended up having to dump all of these game cartridges in a landfill and cover them up just to not be seen or sold on shelves ever again. And about a decade ago, the Angry Video Game Nerd, I'm sure you know him, he made his own movie, and it was about them trying to find the E.T. cartridges, and it's absurd. It's a great movie, but it turns out, in fact, that they were found at one point. This was years ago, but they did find all these old E.T. cartridges, which I think is just crazy. That we find, it's like digging up a fossil, but we know what the whole story is. So it's crazy, and just one of the biggest disappointments in video games. Up next, I think we have one that everybody will know about, and that is No Man's Sky. This was supposed to be groundbreaking video gaming in the sense that you could just travel to the stars and like go to all these different planets, and everything was randomly generated, and everything was a new experience. It didn't matter when you played or how you played; you were always experiencing something different every time you landed on a planet or you flew out in the solar system. Those were all promises by this guy, by the way. Look at this guy. He was lying to our faces at first. This was made by a small development studio, and that was hailed as the next big thing. And when it came out, it just kind of fell flat. Planets were repetitive. They held no life. Like, you'd land on a planet and there was like nothing there. There was nothing to do. You just kind of do the same tasks over and over. It was very repetitive and just kind of boring. And it looked bad for them. They did not fare well from critics and, the audience of gamers alike, because it was not what they had promised. They had given us all these promises and none of them were met, really. I am happy to say that since then, since the just terrible launch of this game, they have since gone back and completely overhauled this game and made it something worth playing, I think. So if you haven't played No Man's Sky, maybe give it a try, because nowadays it is more a realization of what they wanted to do from the outset that they didn't do when it first came out. So good on them for going back and fixing the problems that were there, from what they promised to what they delivered, and realizing what they promised was not what they delivered. All right, this next game, I'm going to talk about it for the amount of time that it was actually interesting to play, and that's Anthem, a game that had all this hype and all this excitement around it, only to fall flat because it was boring, uninteresting, and repetitive. I'd kind of thought of it as Destiny. That's another one. I won't get into Destiny, but it's just very repetitive. Same thing over and over. There was no life to it, really. So Anthem just shit the bed and was done within an instant, and nobody plays anymore. It's one of those games I feel like you can find for like $1 at a Dollar Tree or something. Like, no one plays it anymore. All right, another big one for me, I was actually excited about this one. That's Mighty Number 9. It was from the guy that originally did the Mega Man games, and I was super excited to play it because it's supposed to be the spiritual successor to Mega Man. And what it was uninteresting platforming garbage. It just was not fun. It was very simplistic. It didn't have that charm that Mega Man games have. And unfortunately, the audience felt the same way that I did. It was a Kickstarter-backed game, which means people gave their money to help get this game made. So imagine spending your own money before the game even comes out and going like, I'm excited to play this game. And then you get your hands on it and you're like, this is nothing like I expected. I had these hopes of it being the next fresh like Mega Man style game, and what I got was something uninspired, just kind of run-of-the-mill, same old stuff when it comes to these styles of games. So it was very disappointing, and people gave their money to do it. So you can understand the disappointment there. I had to put a Bethesda game on this list, and that is Fallout 76. I think I'm not in the minority by saying that this was an utter disappointment when it came out. People had been excited for more Fallout. Fallout 4 had been a big hit. I enjoyed Fallout 4. So to see this game come out and just be severely disappointed in the fact that it is online multiplayer, full of microtransactions, and overall just uninspired and not fun, was super disappointing. They had promised a new Fallout game and all this exciting stuff and being able to play with your friends, only to release this, which is just a load of hot garbage. This is the final one. I was waiting for this one because this one, for me and my experience with gaming over the years, this is the one I know the best, and that is Duke Nukem. This game was stuck in limbo in development hell for 10 years. I remember seeing it come out, or seeing stuff come out about it and saying like, the new Duke Nukem game's coming out, and people love Duke Nukem. It's a good first-person shooter franchise. A little bit immature in some ways, but it is what it is. It's still a very fun series to play through. I remember playing some of them when I was a kid. So I was a little excited about this. I was still making money from my parents doing chores and stuff when this started, so I didn't really plan on buying it, but I just remember hearing about it and then nothing. You would hear about it occasionally, but over 10 years it was just stuck. It wouldn't get released. So when it finally did get released, this promise of a brand new, fresh-looking Duke Nukem game was met with something that looked like it was made 10 years ago, but then just sat on a shelf somewhere until they were ready to release it. It's outdated, it's clunky, it looks terrible, it's even more childish than the other ones are, to where it kind of loses that charm of being a little immature that some Duke Nukem games have. And it just was a huge disappointment. There's even a picture, I'll see if I can find, of the guy that he pre-ordered the game and then had to wait 10 years to get it. I can only imagine that disappointment of spending money. I guess technically with inflation, he saved money by buying it, pre-ordering it back then. Anyways, it's just funny that it took so long for something to be released. There were all these promises made, and then it was just this. But you can pee. You can use the control sticks to pee. That's pretty cool, I guess. All right, so that's my list of some games that promised a lot and delivered a little. If you have some that you think promised a lot and delivered a little, let me know down below. I love interacting and finding out what you guys think compared to the items that I mentioned. So let me know down below what you think. Did you ever feel like you were promised something in a video game and then when you actually received it, it was super disappointing? I'm sure you do. So let me know down below. Thank you for watching. I love what I say this every time I finish one of these, but I love making these videos. We're almost at a year of daily uploads. It will be next week, so I'm excited about that. Got a little something special planned, maybe. But if you want to watch more videos like this, check right here. I've got some. You can check them out. They're lots of fun to make. I make them once a week, and daily gaming videos Sunday through Friday. So I hope you enjoy. Remember to like and subscribe. All that good stuff. I love you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.